Alright, good evening everybody. We should be getting ready to go in just a second here. I always want to make sure that I've got my quality settings, which we do. So we're going to be back to Stellaris tonight as soon as I get the video open. I hope you're all doing well. I've actually had a oddly productive day, which is good. I kind of needed a couple of wins. Although productive for weird reasons, so I still have a bunch of stuff that I need to catch up on. But we are... the focus of tonight will definitely be on Stellaris, and for those of you who are coming from the previous episode, I probably spent the longest that I ever have excuse me, on species creation. I'll admit that the written biography is not really my favorite, but I do like the idea for this species, and it is going to be a new style of play for me because I've never played a criminal enterprise in Stellaris before. These were added back in the Megacorps DLC. We're still playing the LEM update. I think we've gotten enough info on that so we could pack it away. But this is the Natraxian Rum Runners. So much like the previous... I should probably start deleting a few of these. I don't know. I'll spend my own time on that. Or oh, sorry, I'll do that on my own time. But yeah, so it seems to be that the Fear playthrough, people appreciated the creation of playlists to track where we were inside of the game. So I think I'm going to do the same thing there. I have uploaded, I believe we actually, that last week's video might be live now. I don't remember which one I put up today. But because it's the only video, it's going to be, you know, there's no point in doing a playlist yet. But for this playthrough, I will do another playlist. I don't know if I'll do this for every game, as in like every video game other than Stellaris. But given the fact that people do actually kind of still like to use these to learn how the game works, I figure it'd probably be decent to give people a nice kind of point of reference in terms of saying, okay, if you want to see how we got from the start of the game to the point we are right now, here is an archive. And with that in mind, obviously so much time was spent on the creation of the species. This will probably be the better video if you want to know what the first few turns are. We do have 3 planets, quote-unquote planets, but that's because of the specific origin that we have. That's not necessarily because we've actually started expanding. So, anyways, let's load in. And we will review the position. So, for those of you, actually, I guess we can start off. What are we as a species? Well, we are authoritarian militarists. We have a criminal heritage and corporate hedonism. So what does this mean? Well, authoritarian's going to give me some more influence and higher worker outputs. I mean, this is just kind of modeling the idea of the boss, right? And the fanatic militarist, honestly, I couldn't come up with a really good set of governing ethics. And so, I don't know, I just sort of eventually kind of went, roaring 20s, right? So in this case, it'll cost us less to claim... It'll cost us less to claim territory, and we did get an improved ship firing rate. The civics, so criminal heritage, this mega corporation can trace its origins back to a crime syndicate that eventually grew powerful enough to supplant all forms of local government. The idea here actually is that this criminal syndicate, in order to circumvent regulation, actually wound up going into space first, and the governments were essentially unable to deal with the catastrophic change, and so as a result, these are the people running things now. So we can't do commercial pacts. The big thing about criminal heritage is that you can still build headquarters on other planets, but essentially you benefit from increasing crime. So you basically you benefit from destabilizing your neighbors, which is fun. This means, of course, that we are rather eager to find new. New subjects, new species. Also gives a bonus to code breaking. And then corporate hedonism. Work is where you want to be. The citizens of this mega corporation happily pledge allegiance and all of their free time to their employers in exchange for lavish corporate comforts. So, I mean, this is kind of our Interstellar speakeasy, I suppose. I suspect probably... I mean, this is the tricky one, right? Is that I would argue that probably day-to-day... like as a worker in a criminal enterprise, probably really sucks. But number one, it's science fiction. And then number two, you know, it is sort of trying to model the idea of, you know, you're sort of stuck. Well, I guess in any mega corporation, you're going to be stuck sort of consuming the product of the dominant power. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But practically as far as gameplay is concerned, so there's the decadent lifestyle living standard. So higher happiness, but at the expense of higher consumer goods upkeep. You do get a bonus for pop growth from entertainers. That is actually going to be something that I want to be quite careful about. We are looking to, I mean, as with anything, right? I want to try and expand the population as rapidly as I can. But we are also quite limited in terms of what we have access to. Salvage Drifter, how are you doing? All right. We're also kind of lucky here that we got the agenda a new generation, so we don't decide this, but in this case, the boss wants to see the pop growth speed go up, and we also have bonuses to happiness. So I figure this is probably a pretty lucky one to get at the start. I don't know if I really want to go into the full biography of the species. If people want to hear it, I'll happily tell it over the course of the playthrough. Let's just take a quick look at our... okay, so the Arcane Replicator, what is that? You know, it'd probably be better if I... this ancient machine is nestled deep within the habitat's interior, built into its main reactor, from where it also draws its power, a relic of whomever originally built this habitat. Its matter replication technology is utterly incomprehensible to us. Okay, so better for consumer goods and alloys. I'm happy with that. Something tells me I'm probably going to wind up going for a research district on this planet. Or on this station, mostly because it's the only one available. But let's take a minute. We want to make sure that our consumer goods are in order before we move on that. Ducarex has already used up all of its slots. We do have an open building slot here. And I suppose the question would be, do I want to try and improve my astro mining bay? Do I want to try and go for the... We might have even unlocked that already. Nope. So there's the question, do I want to try and get even higher refining for the astro mining bay, or do I want to try and do something such as, you know, civilian industries to convert minerals into consumer goods? Something we don't need to really worry about right now because we have 5 available jobs. But it is something that I'm going to have to figure out later. And then we have a generator station, so this is good news. I think it's almost certain that we're going to build another reactor disk. Actually, you know what? It's not even... There's no almost certain. We need an extra gen... Well, okay. We actually don't need an extra generator. We are making quite a bit of energy already. We would get up to another 22. I do like the idea of specialization, though. So, yeah, we are going to build another reactor district here. And if we run into too much of a deficit, I suppose we just pay, we just pay in the open market for consumer goods. But I am going to try and work around that. The one thing... Oh, yeah, actually, you know what? Yeah. The question... Okay. The real question here is, am I going to be able to build another habitat, or am I going to be able to get to a spot where I'm generating more consumer goods so that Kirox's private stash can have another... can have a research district. Of equal importance, will this happen within the time that I get 3 additional pops? That's a very, very tight timeline, but not an impossible one. So the next question is there any particular... So I've never actually built a habitat before. So what I'm curious about here is there some kind of restriction in terms of where I can build them? That's a lot of alloys. Okay, so at a rate of 100... Okay, so we'll say for the sake of argument... Sorry, I just have a message I want to take a look at here. Okay, so we have a long-term, or not, okay, long-term goals are sort of like big strategic priorities, but we've sort of figured out what our production's going to be looking like. We're in a situation where in order to improve our science, we are going to need more consumer goods, but with our current infrastructure, we would need to... I mean, again, I can skip that energy generator. I really don't want to, though, because energy is also important. So essentially what I'm facing right now is I'm saying, right now I'm generating 2 consumer goods. Population growth on its own is probably already going to force me to, to produce more. In order to have scientists working that slot, I'm almost certainly going to need additional consumer goods. And so we are going to need to either upgrade our existing habitats or we're going to need to build new ones. Hey, how you doing, Night Valian? I'm sorry I didn't say hi on yesterday's broadcast, but I did see you playing Dragon's Breath 3. No. Night Valian is playing Breath of Fire, which I can never seem to remember the name for. And he's got a very good sense of humor about it, because I continue to keep messing that up. But he is a soft voice Brazilian streamer. I know I keep saying this dialogue, but I also know it's a feature that people tend to, maybe not soft voice, but people do comment on my voice, and I think, Night Valian is somebody who is pleasant to listen to. And so I figure, especially because he tends to stream later than me, he is somebody who I think a number of you would enjoy watching. He also has quite a bit more variety than me, because as you can see, we've been here for a few minutes, and I'm figuring out a longer-term strategy for the game. I am also shouting out Night Valian, but that kind of, that's part of the stream too. But we're taking the time to sort of think things through as far as our overall goals, and obviously there's a cost for that. It means that I don't necessarily get through as many games as I would normally like. But Night Valian is definitely quite a bit better at doing the variety broadcaster. He plays a lot of games, a lot of indie games, a lot of Game Pass games, and just somebody who I've really enjoyed getting in touch with. Undecided as far as the Suns thing. We might try to become Emperor, but we'll see. Anyways, back to the task at hand. So we've said, okay, our long-term progress is going to be aligned with scientific progress. In addition, we want to be able to absorb the demands for consumer resources from additional pops. As a consequence, this means that we're going to want to build additional consumer goods. Do we want to give up energy generation in order to achieve those extra consumer goods? No, because we are also going to need additional energy resources to be able to, to achieve our goals. Maybe not as many as we have right now. We are definitely quite overweight on energy credits, but it's very hard for me to see, like in the worst case scenario, if we have a huge energy surplus, we just wind up buying additional, goods that we need. So this leaves us with only one option, which is to build another orbital habitat, and as we've seen, it costs 15,000 alloys. So currently we're generating 10 alloys per month, which means that that's 150 months, which in practical terms is I mean, it's not really a 10-year time horizon, but it's roughly equivalent to that. it's worth remembering that we're going to be generating energy credits and we'll be able to buy alloys on the open market as well. So that's why I'm allowing for a little bit of flexibility there. But overall, we kind of have a goal in mind now. And this is unfortunately going to mean that we sort of pick the pocket of the military in order to be able to build this up. The good news, of course, is that with additional construction capabilities, as far as the consumer goods and alloys are concerned, we are going to wind up being able to how do I want to put it? We're going to be able to build those fleets faster. So we're going to be putting the brakes on the expansion of the fleets for a little bit, and then we're going to be focusing on the construction of sort of additional habitats. Another drawback too is that we do still want to be expanding star bases, and so those are going to cost us 100 alloys each turn. What I think I'm going to do there is I'm going to go to the open market, and basically we're going to spend 600 energy each time we want to build another star base. So with all of that in mind, we're now ready to we're going to conquer the galaxy through my charm and good looks right now, Night Valian. We're very early on. What are you up to? A mining station. Oh yeah, that's fair. We're getting additional energy. Following that, I am going to build the starbase. Okay, so we got a couple of options for our... so I'm not going to open up another tree. I'm going to go down one that we have already, so we can get bonuses to our star bases, or we can get better experience gain. In this case, I think I'm actually going to go for the experience gain. It's nice to get the extra research, but we're kind of at the lowest we're ever going to be as far as research is concerned, so the impact of avoiding it or delaying it isn't as severe. So Polytechnic education. In this age of increasingly advanced technology, a basic education in polytechnics and applied science will benefit all our citizens. This will inevitably lead to more qualified leaders. Okay. And you know what? We'll buy the alloys right now. I am curious, so right now it's 571. I want to see if that number changes over time. If I get desperate, I'm also going to be able to sell the surplus food. Minerals I don't think are a good idea to sell because we're going to be converting them into consumer goods and alloys. We also use them to build our infrastructure. But again, if I get desperate, I should be able to sell surplus goods to be able to make the difference. But again, we're making so much energy that I think it's better that
Research complete. We did it.
Science Officer Derboxa has managed to partially translate the alien mural discovered on Shorlax 3. The text contains a staggering amount of data, and the mural evidently serves as some sort of low-tech library. It describes in broad terms the collected technological knowledge of an alien civilization that dominated this region of the galaxy some 80 million years ago. A lot of it is already known to us, but the data does contain several promising leads for technologies we had yet to consider. There is enough data here to keep our scientists busy for decades, but we will need an orbital research facility to continue the translation efforts. So this is going to get us 2 science of each type on this planet. We also have a level up, so yeah, quite a speedy researcher. We were probably going to wind up taking this system anyway, but this has become quite a bit more attractive as a result. But I do only have 1 construction ship still, so the progress is going to be somewhat slow. In terms of planets that I definitely want to take, Lishval, Nihal, and now Shorox. So one, you know, being able to claim the entryways are nice. This has a strategic resource. And then I'm still trying to find all the choke points. This is actually a fairly difficult part of the galaxy to defend. So I'm allowed right now, for my capacity, 3 star bases without penalty. I've already got one in the capital, but as far as entryways are concerned, we've got Lishval, Nihal, and let's say Subra to begin with. Oh, sorry, and Jinkath. So I'm either going to need to build an additional 2, or I'm going to need to find ways of sort of incorporating larger branches. This is one of the reasons why multiple science ships is a good idea here. Although at the moment we don't seem to be racing the AI as far as territory is concerned. Okay, so looks like we're already getting additional consumer goods. I'm assuming that's because we've got some slack. Olaf, thank you very much for the host. How you doing, my friend? Going well. It's a bit of a weird day, but I got a surprising amount done. I'm a little... There's a weird thing about me where if you go... I mean, my office admittedly has been empty for over a year now. But one very funny thing I notice at work is everybody comments on how tidy my office is. And they're not wrong, but it's maybe more surprising to me as to why everyone's office doesn't look that way. It's just, like, I kind of just took that as a thing. It's a semi-public place. Like, I mean, I do have, like, my own office, but, like, you know, people are coming in and out. You know, you'll do a meeting in that sometimes. Like, you know, just, it's kind of like keeping a staff kitchen or something like that tidy. Like, that's just the thing you do, as far as I'm concerned. But in contrast, I will go through these phases in my apartment. So my preference is to keep it clean and then just, like, maintain. But every once in a while, I will fall out of the habit, and that kind of starts the ball rolling, and then there's just, like, a lot of clutter. I'm not so bad that, like, I had a roommate at a point where, like, they would have no qualms about just straight up garbage, like, being around. Like, I'm really not cool with that. But like, for example, I still don't have bookshelves in my apartment. So maybe I'll take some money and finally buy some bloody bookshelves. But the thing is if I'm potentially wanting to move back to Vancouver at some point, then, you know, it's just more furniture for me to move. But yeah, so, like, I have these huge stacks of books, and then every once in a while I'll really let the papers kind of stack up and things like that. But then, especially if like, the worst one for me is that if, for instance, I went on a bit of a binge and got a bunch of used books, because they were, like, available for a song, and they were all on some topics that I was really interested in. And so what'll sometimes happen is there'll be a lot of packaging, and it never, you know, I'm not going to go up and, you know, put it in the recycling just for one package. You know, I know I've got more coming in. And then, you know, okay, another box comes in. It's like, oh, I ordered something. I've ordered, like, So there's a company called Manning, which has, like, not exactly crowdfunding, but, like, early access for books. They call them MEEPs. And so I've already paid for a bunch of books, but occasionally, like, their final draft will be done. So, you know, every once in a while a FedEx package will arrive. I'm like, oh yeah, you know, this thing's done. I'm ready to look at it. And again, suddenly it's no longer 2 or 3, but it's kind of this package of, like, or this stack of, like, packing material. And at that point you've already lost, because, you know, clutter comes up around that clutter, and you know, maybe I'm a little bit less diligent in putting my book stacks are actually sorted by topic, believe it or not. Like, I have a literature stack, and I have, like, a current events stack, and I've got an econometric stack. Actually, I have 2 econometric stacks, because they're very thick books and they get a little too tall. But long story short, I've been looking at this and getting very annoyed for a while, And then I also got notice that apparently the annual apartment inspections are happening in about a week. It's like, okay, that's as good of a motivation as anything. So I stopped having it on a to-do list, and I actually set an alarm. But oddly enough today, this is such a long and stupid story for what is basically just normal chores for anyone else. But I basically tried to do it to take advantage of my laziness, and so it was like, okay, just one room a day, and then I have like extra, I have extra time for whatever. And I actually got through like 2, and one of them was like a proper, like, not just a tidy, but like a real genuine like clean of the bathroom. It was like, there's a little something in the tiles, I'm gonna like take a abrasive brush and like really work on that. So I'm ahead of it. I'm behind on some data stuff as a result, but I don't know, it was, it's just one of these ones where I'm remembering how much I like being in an ordered workspace. So my desk is actually still, like, there's a few bits of everything in the area which I need to kind of deal with. But I'm going to properly tidy that up, and then I think I'm finally going to go to work and get my proper, like, monitors and keyboards and things like that, and set up a proper kind of home office setup for myself. So yeah, anyways. A stupid and long story, but that's why I'm feeling slightly good about today. And I hope you're doing well too. What did you do today, Olaf? Or any of you? All right. Through hard work and experience, Boss Kirox has developed new skills. So he's got the eye for talent.
Anomaly found. Hey, can we monetize this?
Sensors are reporting a number of possible points of interest within the dense debris field surrounding QH354F. I should probably do a species around my issues with clutter. Obviously not this one, but... Alright. So, the Stellaris system is tempting just because of the possibility of putting or getting some additional mineral resources, but again, we don't really need them right now, so it's a low priority on the overall list. I do need to kind of figure out how high Shorax is as a priority, because as nice as it is to have those resources, it's not critical in the same way that maybe Nihal is. But I can figure that out over time. I should also double check, are we... No, we do have another bureaucrat slot available, so as the population grows, we are going to be able to... we're going to be able to boost the cap. So we'll have another 10, so 17 total. So remembering we already paid for the building that we're about to construct. But each time we take a new system, I am going to pay for the... Oh, I forgot how much. 527. Okay, yeah, so it does go down over time. This is exactly how I want to... This is exactly how I want to do this. So we'll kind of pay as we go. Give the market enough time to sort of cool off a bit. Oops. Trying to get a good view of both, but the health bar is a little invasive. One of the things I find a little interesting about how I think about so like when I think of something like construction ships in Stellaris, you know, I sort of think to myself, it's like, okay, so, you know, when you're in a military vessel, it sort of makes sense that you're going to be in danger, because it's, in the end, that's true for, like, any military exercise. The fact that you are on a planet does not mean that it's any less dangerous to be on an object where the enemy is going to be firing things at them. I mean, ships are a little safer in general, but you get the idea, right? Or at least they used to be. I know part of the current developments are making things like aircraft carriers liabilities rather than assets. But whenever I think of the construction ships in Stellaris, I'm kind of like, wow, that's like, to a certain extent, construction work, right? It's not the sort of thing that you would normally associate with, daring jobs. Like, it's not the sort of thing that you'd get kind of poetic about in a science fiction story. And it's like, but you're doing, it's very necessary work. But you're doing the sort of thing that would be kind of considered just sort of regular labor, but you're doing it in space. Like, what if an accident happens? What if the ship breaks? Well, if the ship breaks, you're exposed to the vacuum of space and you'll die. And it's like, oh man, that's a really scary job. I don't know if I could ever do it. And yet we have on Earth a perfectly reasonable example of, obviously anybody who was sailing to the New World, or really just sailing in general, was taking effectively the same risk. Like, what are you going to do if if the ship fails, quote unquote, in the middle of the ocean? Well, it's about the same as being in space. So it's really weird. For whatever reason, I can fathom the idea. I mean, again, not to suggest that I don't think historical sailors were made of incredibly stern stuff, but it's very funny to me that when I think of the space equivalent, which obviously so much of science fiction is really just kind of taking up, I have this weird feeling that space is somehow special and unique and like really awe-inspiring and terrifying, when in fact we have quite a bit of historical experience of very ordinary people routinely going out on equivalently dangerous and sort of adventurous, also tedious journeys. I don't know. I have a very weird response to certain framings. Through hard work and experience, scientist Gurferal has developed new skills, so they've become a roamer. And the Grunir ruins. Decoded ancient data crystals have been found on the dig site, chronicling the Gurnir's military exploits. While most are local and of little interest, several volumes detail the Grunir's first encounter with an alien species referred to as the Baal organism. Little more can be gleaned about the Baal at this point, save that they were a massive plantoid species and had many colonies seeded among the stars. Enticing. Keep digging. Okay, so we've got a couple of options here. We've got faith and science. So the public has come to regard science as something almost akin to a religion. Their faith in it is absolute. There is no question in this universe so big that it cannot be answered by science. This is a very tempting one because of the 20% reduction in terms of researcher upkeep. So remember how I was sort of a little uncertain about the idea of building a research facility because of the cost in terms of consumer goods? Well, this is making the construction of that research facility all the more attractive. The big question is it worth picking up now and then either building the research facility early or just banking the savings as far as consumer goods are concerned, or should we use the data bank uplinks? And in this case, I think the data bank uplinks are going to realize more technological benefit to us right now. We still need to grow into the number of researchers that will ultimately be consuming those consumer goods. So it gives us more time to get the new habitat up and running, and we'll also be able to reap the benefits of our additional science infrastructure. So, high-capacity quantum bads dedicated to databank transfers make possible virtually completely synchronous research operations across vast distances. So research subsidies are going to cost us something. So that would give a 20% bonus. And then research from Starbase Constructions is increased by 20%. So now that we are going to be exploiting the research on Lishval, and then we already have one on Minok, one in the home system, and then we'll probably be expanding to Chorax and Pandil before too long. Oh, this is interesting. We apparently ignored Pandil. Alright, that's a little annoying, but... Oh, I think I know what happened. Probably this one had it queued up, but didn't actually deliver. So one thing I need
Anomaly found. Hey, can we monetize this?
Unusual readings suggest that there may be more to this desolate world than meets the eye. So that is in Torville 3. One thing I need to kind of work out is if there's any limits in terms of where I can build habitats. I'm going to assume that they need to be in orbit of certain things. So if we take a look at Natraxia, for instance, we are in orbit of this gas giant. And then the inevitable questions that I have are, okay, so for instance, could I build a habitat over Magan, right? Is there a benefit to me having, having a habitat there? Or Dolok? If I build a habitat on Seconex, is that going to wind up eliminating the 6 energy that I get from that? Because if you notice, we can take a look at each of the objects that the habitats are. Where'd my third habitat go? One there. Oh, Faradex. So each of the worlds doesn't actually have any kind of individual resource on it. And I don't know if that's because of the habitat or that's just the way that the game generates them. Okay, Primordial Soup. Nestled in sheltered pockets across Torville 3's surface is a rich sludge of simple organic compounds that our researchers believe could be a hotbed of abiogenesis, the spontaneous formation of organic life from lifeless matter. Torville 3 has an unusually thick atmosphere for a barren world, which could make it hospitable for simple life forms. Although this presents a unique opportunity to study what could be the early stages of the origin of life, it would be best to set our expectations low, as it may still be millions of years before life eventually evolves naturally on Torville 3, if at all. Very photogenic game.
Resource scan complete.
Okay, so again, reasonably attractive system for the engineering research, although not it's not a slam dunk. I should probably make a decision in terms of what the next, sort of the next expansion is. So ILM's tempting for its archaeological site. Nihal is one of more strategic importance. Although I'm probably going to wind up claiming both. I think the best answer is to just wait until after the expansion's done. Anyway, sorry. The reason why I wanted to ask that...
We really hit this tech out of the ballpark.
Mapping the genome of an individual through the sequencing of their DNA opens up for tailored medical treatments and therapies. So that's after genome mapping. And we will... So I'm most tempted... There's 2 ways that I can handle this. One would be gene clinics. And this is actually a really funny one for me. So essentially what would happen here is that I would build a gene clinic. So let's take Kirox's private stash as an example. I have 2 pops that I need to build, and then, you know, I'll build the additional research district. So then I'll put down a clinic so that I can fill out I think it would be 3 researcher jobs. Yeah, so 3 researcher jobs and then 2 from the clinic. So that would be, I build an additional 5 pops, at which point I would need to replace the clinic, and I would need to make sure that I replace it with something that has up to 2 civilians. In this case, probably, as much as I would like it to be researchers, I might make it another administrative office. And I can kind of do the same story for Ducarex and whatnot. The amenities are quite low here. But that's because we don't have a lot of clerks. Oh yeah, this is the other thing. We don't have any entertainers right now. So I think there's actually a fairly good argument. Yes, holotheaters are better. I should build them right now, actually. It'll kill my consumer goods. But I think it's the right call. Okay. So, no to the gene clinics. We could get an off-world trading company, which will boost the trade value, or ground defense planning. Now, one drawback here is that because space is so limited, I'm a little more reluctant to have soldiers, or like to have the strongholds, which means that in general, the naval capacity, like I'm going to have to get my naval capacity from something else. So I think by process of elimination here, biodiversity studies is the answer. And yes, I'm really wary about this decision, but I am going to build a bunch of holotheaters to help population growth. And again, same story. We're going to potentially replace it with something else. So given how long it's taking to do this expedition, I'm going to say we probably want to claim Nihal first. Just because we get the benefit of the physics earlier.
Prospect analyzed.
Okay, not a bad one. Definitely very mineral focused, so that makes
Construction complete.
Vestalius relatively less attractive, but Troville... Well, I mean, again, in terms of energy, this is probably more efficient, but... Okay, mining station's done, so I am going to move on to Nihal now. And we will pay up.
Technology acquired.
Organizational circuitry, rerouting academic fervor. So that's a 5% bonus to research speed from administrative AI. Colony development speed is not something that I'm going to be as eager to pick up because, of course, we're building habitat pods. Field modulation is tempting because of the bonuses towards energy, although, again, we're doing very well for energy right now. Automated exploration protocols, on the other hand, gives me something that I need quite a bit, which is faster survey speeds. There is also automatic surveying. I don't exactly want to turn that on right away. So, normally I would go for something like field modulation because of the bonuses towards energy, but because we just have such a surplus right now, in this case the automated exploration protocols, even though it is a little bit more expensive and so it'll take the 35 months, this is my preferred option. Also, I want to take a quick look. I think now cracking open the alien box is a good idea, so... what's the story here? Okay, right. So again, I will take ILM, but I don't want to do it right away. Oh, well, that's what I get for assuming that it was a shorter event than it actually was. Data crystal records reveal that the Gruner War waged war against the Baal, desiring the plentiful resources purportedly found on their planets. A set of system coordinates have been successfully extracted from one such record. Our archaeologists are uploading the planet's location to our systems now. So we have
log updated.
Another special project. For now, because we're going to be waiting before we take the ILM system, let's just investigate what we can and make sure that that ship's on standby. Okay.
Construction complete.
Cool. Actually, let's get that job done right away. So one of the reasons I'm reluctant to sell off... So there's two reasons why I'm reluctant to sell off food and such.
Planetary exploitation forecast complete.
The reason number one is that I'm probably going to need a stockpile for when our population grows quite large. And then number two, again, energy is one of my best resources. All right. We also have a shortfall. Now, this is because we are... I just built a bunch of new buildings in these systems, so even the Empire Sprawl is starting to hurt from this. But I'm hoping that we are gonna... Basically, we're gonna turn around and see a boost to our population growth as a result. So we don't have any bureaucrats working, for instance. That'll change. We don't have any farmers working. That's interesting.
Boom! We built something.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about these. Okay. Now, I didn't really think this through as far as the cost of the purchase is concerned. Maybe the market's calmed down. No. We're still probably going to overpay for these alloys, but I think it's the right call.
Research complete. We did it.
Former Baal colony, the Baron. Despite the promise of riches suggested in the ancient Gruner data crystals recovered from Sidar, Minok 3 is a dry, barren world void of atmosphere. Fortunately, geological scans have revealed a near-endless trove of fossilized remains deep in the planet's sedimentary record. Among them is a plantoid species most likely to have been a Baal, as long as it is one of the only one identified in possession of the neurological structures required for sapience. A targeted excavation should uncover more information. So this gives us an additional 5 artifacts. We haven't really been using those yet, but we do have another archaeological site. So it's a little bit less important for me to pick up ILM, but let's just go for it. We got caught. We got kind of caught unawares before, so it is worth mentioning that there is a pretty severe cost for each bit of expansion that I do now. So I need to really think about whether or not I'm getting something that's worth it. So a great example of this would be, do I want the Pandil system? So right now, engineering is sort of the middle of the pack. So while it will give me enough to bring engineering at the top, it is worth remembering that my Empire Sprawl is going to go up, which means that there's a percent-based increase to my science costs. So
Resource
it means
scan
that
complete.
my physics and social research are actually going to decrease, even though the overall increase on engineering is going up. So it might be a time where I don't necessarily want to do that much expansion unless I can come up with a really good justification. So something like Shorax is a good example. In this case, Shorax is going to be a little less than a 1% increase in terms of my overall research. And we do know that we're eventually going to get the Empire Sprawl in, so it'd be nice if it was something like 3 or 4, but this would be something where it's sort of like, okay, I'm getting a decent enough trade-off. All right, so we're on to our last little bit of science. So faith in science, the public has come to regard science as something almost akin to a religion. Their faith in it is absolute. There is no question in this universe so big that they cannot be answered by science. And we get our first Ascension perk. So we have a few options here. We could do Nihilistic Acquisition. Now again, the challenge on this one is that we don't have a lot of space. So this would imply that, you know, in addition to doing a lot more war than we necessarily want to do as a criminal enterprise, that we would have space for our newly acquired slaves. So this is probably not a good choice for us. Interstellar Dominion's an interesting one. It is interesting in the idea that we are able to expand more rapidly, but then that has an assumption that I'm going to be able to keep my administrative capacity up, and it seems like we've not been able to keep that along the way. We did just get Discovery, so there's sort of a justification in terms of technological ascendancy, a faster research speed. One Vision is one that I generally like just because of the bonuses to Unity, although I don't really think we've been killing it as far as our Unity production is concerned. Mastery of Nature I just don't see as being very useful to us. Edict Capacity is kind of interesting through Executive Vigor. It's probably a little early for me to do that. Transcendent Learning makes my species a little bit better. One thing that is interesting would be Voidborn. So we've adapted to permanent habitation in the depths of space, reducing our infrastructure needs and yielding room for our habitats for other functions. So, I mean, our habitats are already pretty livable. So, how you doing, NC Jubilee? So habitats owned by our empire have 2 additional building slots. Our upgraded habitats can support advanced housing buildings, and then we already have habitat expansion. So what's kind of interesting here is that we'd be doubling down on our origin. The thing is that our origin kind of already gives us access to a few of these things. So while it's nice to have sort of the expanded capacity, it's maybe not... like, it's not as attractive as it would be if I didn't have this origin. So I think at the moment our best option is pretty much technological ascendancy, just in terms of the number of units of research that we're generating. It's, well, actually, you know what? Our Unity is higher than any single science. I don't know though. I still think this is the right call. So technological ascendancy is. Technologies that would have been indistinguishable from magic mere generations ago are now within our reach. 10% bonus, and then rare technologies now appear 1.5 times the normal rate. This effect would change a 1% chance to 1.5% chance. Again, we need to get the Empire Sprawl under control before we do too much further expansion. But on the other hand, it is also a nice opportunity for me to just kind of boost up my my alloys. Be interesting if you could get a graph that shows the historical price. So I don't remember what
This
the
tech
starting
had better
price was.
generate some revenue.
Engineering research increased by 20%.
Boom.
Nanomechanics.
We built something.
Advanced instrumentation allows for the study and practical application of physical systems at nanometric scales. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is just build the mining stations. That's kind of a no-brainer. And engineering-wise, so advanced habitat, again, this is an incredibly expensive upgrade for us. 295 months is just not worth it. So, planetary build speed's also quite expensive on a relative basis. So I think the time has come. Let's just start doing our ship upgrades. I'm not actually going to upgrade the fleet because, again, the alloys are already earmarked for our expansion. But being able to... Oh, I didn't actually stand. I'm getting credit for standing, so I guess I'll stand for a little bit while my empire's... my empire's doing its thing.
Planetary exploitation forecast complete.
Inexplicable optical phenomena play across the surface of Gearfab 5, clearly visible from space. Okay, so this one might get me some better laser tech, which is nice. Now we do only need 1,500 for the orbital, the new orbital habitat. So again, there is something of a temptation to buy up the alloys right now. But again, the longer I wait, the lower the price goes. And I genuinely do not remember what the initial level is. Basically, what I'm trying to look at is how long does it take me to see the price fall back to what it was before. Or alternatively, like what I'm really looking for is how often can I buy alloys without creating sort of this inflationary pressure? All right, Science Officer Durbaxa reports that the luminous waves coursing through the ice that blankets Gearfab 5 are of alien origin. Some ancient battle has deposited scattered wreckage from an alien fighter on the frozen planet, and only the exposed core of its main weapons remains intact. It seems that this alien race used lasers somewhat more advanced than the ones currently in use by the Rexarian fleet. The Rexarian fleets. And the fizzling innards periodically discharge low-powered lasers into the ice of Gearfab 5. The planet's harsh climate prevents the lasers from actually melting the ice, allowing the chilly matrix to act as a brilliant prism. We could use that technology.
Technology discovered. Rad!
So, more powerful than red lasers, these blue variants emit electromagnetic radiation at a wavelength that appears blue or violet to most organics. Okay. Field modulation's kind of tempting now. Yeah, let's do that. Oh, no, sorry, we're still researching the automated exploration. Looks like we boosted our alloy production as well, so for whatever reason they shifted workers out of metallurgy into out of admin and into metallurgy. Crashed Starship. A small canyon of sorts has been carved into the surface of this planet by the violent impact of a starship. What remains of the vessel can still be found in the canyon floor,
Construction
although the
complete.
crash must have occurred eons ago. The wreckage appears to be reasonably intact. An archaeological expedition would be able to learn more. That is... maybe... I'm not 100% sure how I feel about that, to be honest. Okay, so we are closing in on our goal for alloys. This is the point where, I mean, again, it's a tricky call. I can be expanding, but this is going to come at the cost of additional empire sprawl. Shorax is mighty tempting, though. I think we're just going to cool it for a little bit, because we're already seeing our empire sprawl move up. So Right now I just want to see what happens to the price of alloys over time. At least until we get to 1500.
Resource scan complete.
So they know what to do. If I can, it would be great to be able to claim this as a choke point, just because it gives me access to all of these other systems. But again, we're a megacorp, which means that expansion is a little more costly to us overall. I also haven't explored this arm of the galaxy, so you know, we may have other exploration options. Just noticed a sudden drop in my consumer goods, and I'm a little curious what cost it. Could just be the natural addition of more workers. So we're back to speed on research. That's good, because we do need to overcome the Empire Sprawl. Another bureaucrat would be nice, but we're looking 39 months. That's a long time to wait. Mind you, we'll be closer
Resource
to the
scan complete.
Also be closer to the new habitat by then.
Boom! I found something.
A large amount of ship debris can be found in orbit around this moon, possibly the remnants of some kind of massive fleet action. So we'll definitely research that. I'm wondering if 520 is the floor, because notice that these numbers aren't going down any further. So I'm going to run an experiment. We're going to start by buying 125, so that brings it up to by 51. What I'm going to do next is buy the 250, and I'm going to assume that what happens is there's a, it goes up by more than 51. But I want to test that, just to be sure. The remains of a vast space station have been found in Hexaros, judging by the amount of what seems to be office space. A vast forum outfitted with dozens of different types of life support systems. Our scientists suspect that this is all that remains of an interstellar assembly. So this is incredibly tempting to try and take because it is a megastructure, but again, I'm spending administrative capacity that I don't actually have. Signs of battle. There is clear evidence that a massive space battle took place in close orbit around Chiliban 3 at some point in the last 5,000 years. The surface on one side of the moon is pockmarked with craters from the stray weapons blasts, and scans from the ISS Irid-Fik have picked up several hulks on the ground. Though these wrecked ships are all in very poor condition, the fact that anything remains after all the damage that they must have sustained is a testament to their advanced design. Science Officer Forlek is preparing an expedition to sift through these derelict hulls for any valuable technologies.
Log updated.
Okay, well, we'll put that at the top. Again, this is Control-Shift that I'm running here to put that at the top of the queue, as opposed to Shift to just add it to the queue regularly. We're going to be waiting a while before we can buy items. Although, I'm going to pause. There might be a way that I can figure this out on my own. So, this is a slightly different question that I'm asking, but let's just take a quick look. So it's 141 for 25, so that's an average price of 564. So for 728, we divide that by 125, and that's an average price of 582. And then finally, with 1520, we divide it by 250. That is a unit price of 608. So it does actually scale up the prices as you move along. So in theory, the thing that you would want to do is you would want to wait for. Hey, no worries. What are you killing? Is it Borderlands or is it something else? But yeah, I mean, I know you like lurking, so I like to be polite. It's nice to say hello to people and ask them how they're doing. Ah, the WoW of Warcraft. Thank you very much, Olaf, for basically you're on the eve of 1.5 years of being subscribed to me, but more importantly, you have been keeping me in subscriptions to Miss Ariella for so long. I kind of feel like that's almost, that to me almost counts as much as an extended, you know, an even longer period of time being subscribed. So thank you twice over. But yeah, I was gonna say, apparently you gifted so many subs last time that you apparently you didn't get a chance to get your own. As always, thank you very much. I know I said that like 3 times, but I'm just that grateful. Yeah, I was in a similar chat with someone, but I was playing Battlefield 2042, and I was playing the hazard zone mode, so it was it's a little difficult to chat. I like Battlefield 2042. It is pretty rough around the edges. I'm a bit curious in terms of what the overall set of decisions were in terms of, you know, like obviously there's certain windows, there's marketing, there's a lot of things that will lead a certain game to be released in a certain state. I'm under no illusions that I don't think there's anything that I have seen in 2042 that the development team is, you know, I think they're all they're all well aware of the, you know, the issues that I or anybody else are running into. I actually, so I kind of hope there's a patch for the full release, just because I found that I can't actually go up ladders right now. Yeah, the tornadoes are great. But, you know, so yeah, there's definitely stuff that I'm, you know, not crazy about. Like, definitely that I feel if I were to play a Battlefield game, I'd probably go and play Battlefield 5 for. But the Hazard Zone really is a very well done mode. I think there's a consensus forming that it kind of saves the game. I don't really know. I think saves the game is too pessimistic about the current state of Battlefield 2042. But it's definitely a real gem. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not very good at the game, so I'm just gonna enjoy my time, hope I get better, and carry on. But you know, I can maybe see why, you know, some people, I guess if you don't care for the Hazard Zone mode, you may be wondering kind of what the real benefit is. Yeah, you know, the funny thing is that I've played the single-player campaign of 3, but I've never played multiplayer. From what I understand, though, all the historical Battlefield games are supposed to be pretty good for... Sorry, when I say historical, as in, like, the previous ones. Oh, I haven't played Portal yet, by the way. Apparently the Portal's also supposed to be really impressive. But yeah, apparently there's still a pretty robust player base for all the older ones, so maybe I should give it a try. Anyways, sorry. I was talking about this. So it would seem like the optimal way to make the most of your energy resources would be to basically wait until your unit price is down to, I guess, 5.2, and then buy the 25, and then just kind of, you know, dance back and forth on what the, you know, just kind of boost your alloys over time that way. I don't know if I'm quite kind of... I don't think I'm quite obsessive enough to try that strategy. Maybe we'll give it a shot, but right now I'm going to be a good boy and just wait for my habits. Actually, this might be the point where I just spend a bunch of money. But before we do that, let's go and get a new tradition. So, discovery was a pretty obvious one for us. I think we are going to go for prosperity next. Excuse me. But let's just take a quick second. So I think diplomacy and domination don't really make... Or actually, the habitat alloy upkeep wouldn't be bad. Expansion is a hard one for me to... Excuse me. Yeah, expansion's a hard one for me to really justify. I mean, maybe once we build a habitat pod, we'll get a better idea about how this works. Adaptability, again, it's a little early. Housing usage may be a factor, but I think our infrastructure needs are going to outweigh that. We're okay for food. Resettlement might be a thing, actually. But yeah, let's skip over diplomacy and domination for the time being. I think we eliminated expansion as a possibility. Harmony, again, it's probably a little early on that. It is kind of neat that we do get reductions in terms of maintenance costs. But again, food and minerals are two resources that we have in abundance. Mercantile is kind of interesting because of our trade value. So clerks provide trade value, so that's a big one. Consumer benefits and marketplace of ideas, trade policies. Yeah, so being able to turn trade value into consumer goods or unity are actually pretty attractive, given that consumer goods are a bit of a drag for us. Yeah, mercantile's one I'll consider. Prosperity, though, is probably where we're going to be going. Subterfuge is not necessary right now, as is supremacy and unyielding. So, prosperity. So, 20% bonus to mining station output, which is already a really big boost for us. Building upkeep, district upkeeps, reduced build speed increase, build cost reduction. A free building slot is pretty much a must. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear why this was the one that I stressed about. So, there's no better indicator of the success or failure of a star nation than the strength of its economy. Right, sorry. I said I was going to buy the remaining alloys, even if it's at a higher cost. So, let's go... Okay, well, the first thing I want to do is see... Okay, a habitat can only house habitat-specific buildings. If built in orbit over a planet with mineral, energy, or science research, special districts will be available. Interesting. Drayden, thank you very much for the follow. I'm going to take a quick second here. I want to see if I can get a little more information as to exactly how that works. So again, just a reminder, this is a separate website you can access, but usually you're going to want to see what's going on in Stellaris inside the game, so if you go to the question mark in the bottom right-hand corner, you can access the wiki. Also, you can do Alt-B to find the... Okay, so Void Dweller's origin, megastructure construction, 70% without Voidborn, 90% with Voidborn. Has 4 types of districts, with the 5th one being available if built over a planet with a resource deposit. Starts at size 4 and can be increased to size 8 by using decisions with the required technologies. Habitation districts do not provide building slots, unlike... Oh! Okay, that's actually a good one for me to know. Okay, so we've got Habitation District, Trade District, Leisure District. Here we go. Okay, yes, I see exactly how this works now. So we've got Astro Mining Bays if we went over minerals. Oh, that's really interesting, actually. So if you are Gestalt Consciousness, you always have a reactor. Cool. Research district would be if you are over research or strategic resource deposits. Industrial districts. Yep, that's fine. So the thing, okay, so basically there's a few considerations that I have when wanting to build these habitats. So number one, the long-term goal for this was to be able to build something that would give us consumer goods and alloys. We will get that no matter what we build. However, we now also are presented with a few trade-offs. I am going to assume that by building a like a base or whatever, by building an orbital habitat over like a resource producing planet, it's going to remove those resources, which to me means that I want to be looking for planets like... Maybe Minoc will have an example. Of course it will. It's 7. That is actually a 7. That's slightly terrifying, actually. God. Do I not have a single... Okay, fine. We'll just, like... So, for a reactor core. I don't know if I can build a habitat around the sun, but we'd be losing 2 energy. 2.4, actually, because of the bonuses that we're getting. But if you take a look at what our generator station allows us, we're currently generating... Well, it's a net 12, but basically we're generating 26.96 off of the game. You have 2,000 hour in this game and you didn't know that there was an in-game browser. Not that I think you feel actually bad about it, but if it makes you feel any better, there is a reason why I point it out, because that is not every time, but most times I point it out, that is actually the same reaction that I get from everyone. I don't remember how I originally found it. I think it was just because I clicked all of the buttons because I wanted to see like what each of them did. I still actually don't... I mean, like, I kind of know what these do, but Oh, right, Union's map mode, so... but yeah, for the most part, I like never touch these, but once upon a time it says like, okay, I'm going to learn all of these, and I was like, oh, hey, I don't need to open an independent browser. Anyways, thank you for the follow, and welcome. I do not have 2,000 hours in the game. I have... probably less than 1,000. But now you've got me curious. Getting there. 851. But that's probably not all gameplay. It's probably a lot of species creation, actually. Alright, anyways. So, basically, what I'm trying to do here, right, is that if I'm going to be putting 1,500 alloys into the creation of a habitat, I want to be somewhat thoughtful in terms of how I'm going to make it. Another consideration that I have is the sectors. So I think it's within 3 jumps. It'll probably tell me on the capital. Of course, it won't tell it here. I'm pretty sure it's 3 jumps, though. So this means that, you know, here. I mean, pretty much all of the stuff that I've already taken is a good idea. But if for whatever reason I wanted to try and build one in Toraville, that means that I'm going to wind up getting another governor, and that may not be desirable. Because I'm a megacorp, it's actually not bad to keep things a little more compact until I've got the bureaucracy in place. So, the big thing for me here is that I already know that I want this to be focused on producing consumer goods and alloys. So in this case, it actually makes sense for me to put it on something like Dolok, because it's already within the same system. Now, I mean, if this system winds up getting taken over, we are well and truly screwed. But then that's probably all true anyway. Like, if the capital system's getting taken, it probably means we've already screwed up the war. And as a consequence, that's going to be where I wind up putting the habitat. Other candidates, you know, in the Subra system, You know, if I really wanted to take advantage of a lot of mining, you know, 2 minerals is not a whole, or 2.4 as it says here. That's not a whole lot to give up. Likewise, Subra 2, same story. You know, if I potentially give up 2 energy in order to be able to make a generator district, which is going to get me something like 20 energy. The real benefit would actually be if I could find a system with science to sacrifice. So for instance, the Nial system is probably a good example because we're already doing quite well for physics research. So although I don't know if I could build, well, we can answer that. No, it does not allow you to build a habitat around the sun. I wonder why. But yeah, that would have been, if that wasn't around the sun, that would have been an ideal because, of course, I'm able to get a bunch of science research across the board. And if it does wind up stripping the planet of its resource, you know, what we get back in terms of what the researchers are actually accomplishing more than pays for what we're looking at. But again, this is all academic because we've already decided that we're going to build it over the planet that isn't Mustafar, but totally is. And we can start investing in our military again. So again, the overall plan on this was so that we would be able to build a new research district. That's still on schedule. Once we fill up in terms of available jobs, we may convert the Holo Theater. I'm not 100% sure on that yet. Because in the end, it occurred to me that I could have just simply built a leisure district. I would have got the housing plus a culture worker for it. So this isn't necessarily the best use of research. Well, then again, the research is actually pretty good. But yeah, one way or the other, we may or may not convert the Holo Theater just because it does give a growth benefit. I suppose if we want to get rid of the growth benefit, in the capital world, we would convert this to administrative offices, and then on Ducarex. Actually, that's a good question. What would I replace this with? We don't really have any extra mineral refining right now. Maybe a stronghold if I wanted to take advantage of the naval capacity for soldiers. And I also don't think we've got the energy boost either. Okay, well before we think about that, let's take a look at not policies but edicts.
Research complete.
Yeah, so research subsidies makes a lot of sense given the fact that it's an energy cost. We're drowning in energy. Map the Stars might have been a good one, but we wanted to expand our borders. So I think probably research subsidies will be where we wind up going eventually. And there's no reason I mean, I've got tons of cash, so I should definitely be taking advantage of these, particularly for the consumer goods upkeep. So we're paying for both of those. All right, special project completed. Special project completed. I mean, we're reptilian. We should like the sun, right? The team under Science Officer Forlek finished their expedition on Chilben 3A and returned to the ISS Irid Fik. Thankfully, the Starship graveyard on the surface proved to be a technological treasure trove. Studying the remains of these vessels has advanced our research in certain fields by several years, and there are yet things to discover. A permanent science outpost in orbit would be a great boon to our Starship engineering efforts. So we get 870 for engineering research on its own, and then if we choose to claim the system, we will get the option of another 3 engineering. If we were to do that, we need to claim this system. I'm just waiting for this number to go down, but I am going to start augmenting my my alloys. So yeah, other than the fact that I'd rather have one of my bureaucratic slots filled, we're
Anomaly found.
pretty much on track in terms of where we want to go.
This?
No, I tend to play the game vanilla. It's a shame because obviously a huge appeal of so many Paradox games is their modding capabilities, but I sometimes get a little overwhelmed. I actually would probably want to design a mod before I play one, oddly enough. It's mostly just because I have a really clear idea of what I would do for a Stellaris mod, but I also noticed that the data structures or whatever you would call pretty sure they count as data structures. But like if you look at the old, like way back before the game was even released, if you look at those dev diaries and then compare them to the current structure of the events, there's just no comparison. Like anything that they previously wrote about modding just doesn't apply. So I've not had the time or inclination, let's say, to do it. But yeah, simple answer to your question is not running any mods yet. I'm still getting enough enjoyment out of the base game. Although I know there's one, I think, to the outliner that makes it a little bit more manageable, which I should probably look into. Cursory scan of the planet's surface reveals a weak signal pulsing into the darkness of space.
Research complete.
Hey, here we go. Alien box open. At long last, our scientists have penetrated the outer material of the alien box. The box holds 3 small liquid-filled vials, one red, one blue, and one green. The liquids are less alien than their container, and our scientists have identified them as primed gene modification mediums. For reasons beyond our understanding, the solutions are quickly deteriorating outside of their alien container, but there should be enough time to synthesize and apply one of them to our species. It has been confirmed that its effects would be positive, but exactly how remains to be seen. So I feel like this second sentence is pretty much them saying is like, no, you totally don't want to sell them. It does do cool stuff. The catch is that I've run into this a few times, and I still don't remember what they do, but I like that because it's still fun to have mysteries. So I think I tend to go for green, and I usually wind up liking the green one, but let's do red this time. Oh, does it not tell us? Oh, here we go. The red gene modification solution has been successfully administered to the Raxar people. Based on preliminary observations of early subjects, the solution appears to make us more social. Oh, all right. So let's take a look at what the actual outcomes are. Sorry. Maybe we can get by searching for that? Nope. But man, they do not make it easy to find out what's in this. Before changing any of the game mechanics or adding content for mods, I just go UI mods first since they're the simplest, yet easily most effective updates for quality. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the thing is that I, in general, have not modded too many games. I think back when I played a lot more in terms of, I don't know why, but like, I really like playing older games with like really big mod support. I guess maybe that's because there was like, it was just a different kind of culture of modding and things like that. I don't know. It's easy to sort of do it ex post. I'm not even going to bother seeing what the rest of those are. We'll just see what Social Pheromones does. But yeah, I mean, the biggest one for me is that I get a few good sessions under any given patch, and then of course a new patch will come out, and so there's new fresh stuff for me. So I don't quite feel the same sort of staleness. And for me, the appeal for Stellaris is a little bit less the idea that I could get a Warhammer 40k mod or a Star Wars mod. And from what I understand, like some of the more themed mods are exceptional. That's absolutely no disrespect whatsoever to the people who are doing those mods. But for me, because so much of the appeal is the big blank canvas on which I can already make those empires, on which I can sort of realize any kind of science fiction that I'm already interested in, the idea of having the galaxy limited to one particular universe that I as much as I enjoy seeing it as a film or reading it as a book, it doesn't quite hold the same appeal to me. So the same way that some people really like Crusader Kings for the Game of Thrones mod, you can see why that makes a lot of sense, because Crusader Kings is a historical game, and to be able to convert a historical game into realizing the fantasy world that's a big appeal. That's something where you're really seeing like that kind of a transformation. And I mean, the subject of Game of Thrones is really appropriate to the mechanics of Game of Thrones. Whereas for me, I haven't actually quite been sold on the idea that any of these mods are necessarily giving me something that I'm not already getting in the base game. So if I want to play the Borg, I have that. I've had that option since Synthetic Dawn. But generally, I kind of like coming up with my own species. But again, this is the whole point of modding, right? You know, you play the game the way that you want, and so far I've been pretty happy with what I got. Also, I'm sorry, I forgot to say this earlier on. This is going to sound like an advertisement for the genius of Paradox Development Studio. I am actually playing a copy of the game that I was given from the developer, and I should have said that at the start. I'm very sorry that I forgot to do that. But I am playing a key which was given specifically for promotional purposes. So obviously, I'm sure the developers actually prefer it if you play the game with the mods, because that just means that you keep playing it for longer and you buy the DLC, you know, to add more features to your total conversion. But it's important to mention that stuff. Also, I should probably just get back on with the gameplay. But there's a few people who are new to the game now, and so I are in chat. So I may play slow, but it does tend to be good for kind of introducing people to Stellaris. And I think being able to talk a little bit about why I personally may not be playing mods while still making people aware of the fact that if you go into, you know, the Steam Workshop or, you know, wherever you wind up getting your mods, it's probably worth acknowledging their existence and the fact that it's an option that lots of people enjoy, just not necessarily for me. All right, the Baron. Thick layers of ash and a notable mass extinction event in the geological record coincide with the material previously extracted from the Gruner data crystals, suggesting that Gruner firebombed Minoc 3 with a gelling incendiary roughly 7 million years ago. Widespread deforestation of the planet's surface disrupted local ecosystems, and the lack of oxygen-fixing vegetation gradually depleted the planet's atmosphere over the next 60,000 years. Unfortunate. Limbo. The signal originates from the remains of an antenna-like structure. Exploratory probes were dispatched from the ISS Irid Fick to the surface to investigate the matter more closely. What Science Officer Furlek found was a cavernous vault that, while easily pried open, was evidently the last safe house and refuge of some long-dead race of aliens. While reasonably technologically advanced, it seems that they never reached for the stars and perished to some planet-wide natural disaster. The vault is immense, housing thousands upon thousands of black boxes, which the ISS Irid Fick has determined to be data storage devices. A special project has been prepared to decode their contents. Log updated. So we are nowhere near to getting synthetics, but we will get a free synthetic pop if we so choose. And let's get the Corvette out. Still going to be waiting a while before we're back at the base price. That's not what I wanted. This is the one I wanted. Can we even see the outline of the habitat yet? I guess not. So it doesn't really tell us... 18... Oh god, that's gonna be a while.
Research complete. We did it.
Right, the vault is a tomb for hopeful immortals. Science Officer Forlek asserts that the huge blocks of, ternary code found in the databanks are neural images, digitized brain scans. Doubtless, the aliens of Chipilan 1 considered this their only shot at any kind of survival, following whatever calamity befell their planet. They did not have the means to resurrect themselves, but banked on the impossibly small hope that eventually someone else would have those means. So we could do Let Data Aliens Lie, and we get a big engineering boost. Now, I would maybe consider that if I was working on the habitat upgrade, but right now, I don't think that's the right call. So we will go for a little less engineering research, and then just get the option of building the synthetic pop later. Some stuff you just remember. I think that was like one of the first events that I ever ran into in the game way back in 1.0 or whatever it was called.
Wow, we really hit this tech out of the ballpark.
Let's get another Corvette up. All right, studying the different forms of life that appear on our world helps us better understand ourselves and the life that surrounds us. So we don't really need the farming subsidies. We're still doing okay. We're in double digits there. The administrative capacity is tempting. We're probably not going to use gene clinics, and again, we don't have any strongholds. So both by process of elimination and sort of expediency, the admin cap is probably the right call.
Prospect analyzed.
Your next week exploring scientist? Sorry, I think I might miss the reference, Drayden. Nope. So this is a time I'd maybe consider doing the automated exploration, but I'm still going to... I think I'm still going to, I don't know, lock in the survey, or I'll manually do the surveys for the next little while. Are we 58? So that'll eventually come through. And then they're taking their sweet time on the archaeology. So yeah, I think our resources are going to be tied up for the next little while. I think if we have... so I mean, again, I can get the I can get the administrative cap up if I so choose. I think we'll just let nature take its course. We'll wait the 2 years for... one of the just for the population growth. At that point, we'll probably just build a second construction ship, and I can start kind of claiming the remaining systems. It might have been smarter for me to redirect this science ship towards looking at stuff that's closer to home. Alternatively, just building more science ships.
I found something.
Oh, on the okay. Oh, you mean like do you like you mean like naming the scientists? Yeah, I don't normally name them after people in chat, but sure, I can open that up, and maybe I'll say in general for chat if you would like to be named after or if you'd like a scientist named after you, feel free to speak up, and then let's just keep in mind that sometimes I'm very reckless with my scientists, so the casualty rate sometimes can be a bit high. Alright, anomaly on Dothan 1. A colossal impact crater hints that something big collided with the surface of this planet once, so research that. And we still have time to go before we'll buy another batch of alloys, so I don't normally speed up the game, but I don't think there's a whole lot for us to wait for I don't think there's a whole lot for
Planetary
us to...
exploitation forecast complete.
This is why I don't speed up. We briefly detected some unusual energy readings emanating from this planet. It might have been a glitch in our systems, or it could be a sign of something more, so pretty much automatically research them. This is, of course, why I haven't explored that much of the galaxy. Even though I've got 3 science ships, we are spending too much time on anomalies and archaeological sites. But we haven't been penalized by it too much. Asteroid Collision. A large mineral-rich asteroid collided with Dothan 1 at some point during the previous 1,000 years in what must have been a major impact event. An abundance of minerals can now be found at the planet in the vicinity of the impact crater. So again, very unlikely that we'll take advantage of those, but it's nice to know that they're there. And I mean, again, our admin cap is going to go up over time.
Technology discovered. Rad.
Ceramo-metal materials, a combination of different metals and ceramics that result in a strong armor without sacrificing flexibility. Okay, let's pause just to review what we've got here. So again, way too expensive to boost up, but this is going to be a high priority when we can afford it. You will notice that because of the Empire Sprawl, we do have a higher cost. So there's a couple of... So normally I tend to go for stuff like powered exoskeletons and zero-G refineries pretty early. Zero-G refineries in particular are interesting because of the Vestalius system. We've got a nebula there. The catch is that we're still doing, like, energy we're laughing, and minerals we're actually doing quite well as well. We are going to start seeing some of that, we're going to start giving some of that back once we put our foundry online. But where I'm sitting right now, I actually prefer the idea of standardized Corvette patterns because we are slowly going to be adding to the fleet. So the earlier that I get this built, the better. And I think we might actually have a Voidcraft specialist. We do. So let's switch out a few of my scientists for the time being. Actually, I should have checked the relative levels. Well, no, if he's on an exploration ship, he'll be higher level, so... And we've got the money for another Corvette. Magnetic reversal. The magnetic field on Chilban 5 experienced a complete reversal while it was being observed by the ISS Eerd Fik. This rare event has interchanged the positions of the planet's magnetic poles. Fortunately, it was all recorded by the sensors of our ship, providing our scientists with a lot of valuable data. So, some spare physics research. And it does look like there's more up here. So pretty much, I think we can count this science ship as not being relevant to sort of border exploration. Depending on what we find here, we may bring this ship back to investigate this side, and then when this ship is done its archaeological sites, we really need to see what's going on this side. We've kind of already got the choke point for this area taken care of, but obviously a lot of these systems are very attractive. So this is attractive for science. This has got a huge amount of minerals. This has an archaeological site, and this is a megastructure. So all of these are quite attractive. I mean, this one also has alloys, but this is not as exciting as this little cluster here. Now there's the matter of defending it. Oh, actually. This is simplicity itself to defend. Now, keeping in mind that there are eventually warp technologies that let you kind of jump outside of hyperlanes. Assuming we had the administrative capacity for it, we could sort of clip all this off, kind of set up a fortress here. This gives us, all of these very attractive systems and an easy means of defense. So that's a much longer term goal. I mean, we're going to be struggling with our admin cap just to sort of get the main entryways covered, but it's not a terrible option in terms of expansion. We're getting close to a spot where we'll want to buy alloys. You read the Bobiverse series of novels a couple of days ago. Gives you a big itch for Stellaris. I am not familiar with the series. Would you mind giving a quick summary? So one thing I love about streaming Stellaris is that, especially lately, a lot of people have been sharing some favorite science fiction and, just stuff that means something to them. And I've been getting some really good recommendations. A lot of alternative history lately, actually. But do you mind giving me either the elevator pitch or the extended elevator pitch to like the millionth floor? I'd love to hear more about it. I'm actually finally catching up on some of my reading. So I finished Anathem, which I really enjoyed. For those of you that like Neil
found something.
Repeated scans of Zegar 3's surface give inconsistent sensor readings, almost as if the planet itself was in a constant state of upheaval. So we'll research that. Just while, I'm giving Chad a chance to talk about science fiction it likes. So I'm fond of Neil Stephenson stuff. I've read Snow Crash, The Diamond Age, The Baroque Cycle, Cryptonomicon, and now Anathem. I also have a copy of Ream D, but I've not read it yet. That'll be not the next thing I read, but very close. And the only thing I'll say for it is that if you like Neil Stephenson stuff, Anathem is difficult, but in my opinion, very much worth it. And especially if you really like the science and metaphysics sides of the Baroque cycle, you will probably very much enjoy Anathem. But what I did notice, I try and keep track of what I'm reading on Goodreads, because while I do have some ebooks in Apple Books, I don't have all of my books in Apple Books, so that's not the best for keeping track. Apple tends to want you to use stuff in their ecosystem. That's kind of a rather famous feature of that company's products. But I did notice a lot of people really had problems with the special language used in it. And as far as I'm concerned, it's completely justified in the book. And I think it has just enough sort of, you know, like Stevenson's good at spinning a yarn, right? Like it's entertaining stuff. It's very brainy. It's good sci-fi, but it doesn't fail to entertain. But the challenge is that it does go pretty deep in some material, and particularly the special language. I do think people there does seem to be a perception that it's extraneous. I don't think it is, but it is something that comes up quite a bit in the reviews, I notice. So yeah, of the Neil Stephenson's books that I read, it's the most difficult of them, but I very much felt that it was worth it. But if your tastes go more so towards Snow Crash and you really... Okay, actually, here's the way, because a friend of mine read this, Johnny Big Time. He liked Snow Crash, but he really did not like the extended sections on, like, Sumerian myth. So I would not recommend Anathem to him. But I'm obviously quite interested in philosophy, and I do actually like the bits on Sumerian myth in Snow Crash, and so as a result, that book was very much for me. So judge accordingly. Have I read or watched Dune? I have read Dune. I've read Dune quite some time ago, so I remember most of it, but I'd probably fail a test on details. I have watched the 1980s adaptation of Dune, and I've actually also watched the TV miniseries, but I have not watched the new one by Legendary Pictures. I am definitely looking forward to seeing it, though. And also, welcome, Trajari. Drayton says an individual named Bob is replicated into an AI matrix in the near future for the purposes of becoming a von Neumann probe to self-replicate ad infinitum and colonize the galaxy for the human race. His subsequent exponential growth creates a Bobiverse in which there are thousands of mental clones Bob. That is a really cool idea. So, have you played the game Universal Paperclips by any chance? Because if not, I should probably look this up and share it in chat. And do you, you may be asking because you've seen it, would you recommend it, Trajari? I mean, I'll probably see it regardless of what people recommend, but it's nice to know whether or not I'm wasting my time in the movie theater. There's another... oh, yeah, actually, there was another one that I was going to... Okay, so this is a clicker game, but it goes interesting places. So some of you will know the thought experiment that this thing is replicating, but best not to spoil it for the others. Just... There you go. I believe there is a mobile version of it as well, but that I think you have to pay for, so... Grimacing. The very geological structure of Zygar 3 is indeed in flux, driven by what Science Officer Durbaxa assures us is a tectonic process as fascinating as it is esoteric. What is of more interest to the Natraxian Rum Runners is that we may be able to strategically halt the planet's ceaseless chaotic self-transformation. In short, a near-instant stabilization of the planet into something slightly, if not entirely, more habitable is theoretically possible. Durbaxa estimates that an additional 200 energy credits will be needed to power a thorough mapping of the planetary activity and determine the validity of what the science officer has termed a surgical terraforming strike. Actually, terraforming lies beyond our grasp at the present, so this is an exciting opportunity. So if we study the natural processes, we get a +4 physics. Now again, it is worth considering if this works out the way, this is still a likely system for us to claim. And the other thing is that even with a 50% success rate, we really can't colonize worlds. Like, we live in our orbital home, so the terraforming actually isn't all that valuable to us. but I'm going to do it anyway because 200 credits is just so simple. It's pretty good. Made you want to read the book series, which you probably will soon. Also, the soundtrack by Hans Zimmer is amazing. Yeah, actually, I believe that is the reason. So Hans Zimmer has had a pretty close collaboration with Christopher Nolan since... It's not Interstellar, is it? No, it's the Batman movie, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Batman Begins where they started collaborating. But Zimmer rather famously did not score Tenet, and it's not because of any kind of like falling out between them, but it was because he really wanted to do Dune. Like, as far as he was concerned, like being able to score Dune was a once in a lifetime opportunity. And it sounds, for most people, again, I haven't listened to the soundtrack because I'd rather see the film and then listen to the soundtrack. Also, I tend to notice that Apple Music recommends a lot of soundtracks to me if I listen to soundtracks, so I try to avoid it unless it's something I really want to hear. But yeah, I don't know. I'm happy people like it. I think Dune... I've heard people have mixed reactions to the books. Like, I have some friends who are like Dune fanatics, and then I have some people who are really indifferent to the series. I don't know, for me it's just kind of like, it's nice with Dune to have more ways that people are going back and checking out an old type of science fiction. And I kind of think that we're back on the path for some of these older this older style science fiction kind of coming back. This actually might even be kind of an old-fashioned criticism because I haven't read a lot of really new science fiction, but for a while at least, I definitely, if you look at games, there is a lot of really depressing worlds, and it has been observed that, you know, you take a look at even stuff like the Jetsons, right? So like Star Trek, the Jetsons, this is all stuff that inspires, you know, the sorts of, again, I'm going to refer to Apple again. You know, pretty much a bunch of Apple products are essentially just bringing stuff you saw in science fiction television or science fiction books to life. Obviously, I gave film examples or motion picture examples because obviously the Jetsons wasn't a movie. But you get the idea, right? You have these very aspirational views. And it doesn't mean that cyberpunk doesn't have its place. Like, cyberpunk is a really interesting genre. You know, I'm from Vancouver, so obviously I love Neuromancer. Philip K. Dick obviously spent time in Vancouver as well. So Do Android's Dream of Electric Sheep, which of course became Blade Runner. It doesn't mean that cyberpunk isn't like something we shouldn't explore. But take a look at the number of science fiction stories that are coming out that are about grim, depressing worlds. Yes, I've actually been holding off so I can finish Foundation so that I can see it. But I like Jared Harris, and I don't know. I mean, I think David Goyer's a fine writer. Like, some of the stuff he's done, I really like, and some of the stuff didn't care for. But Apple TV is definitely, I think, a very underrated service. I've been pretty happy with just about everything that I've seen on it, and I was definitely very interested in it as soon as I saw Foundation. But the big one for me has actually been the stuff that I've watched that I didn't get it for. Actually, for those of you that like alternative histories, For All Mankind is very well done. And if you think that the first one is not very the first season is not very ambitious with the plot, you really should see the second season. It gets big. But yeah, basically, where I was going with this was basically just to say is that there is something very nice about some of the ideas in science fiction that, you know, sometimes, like, so one of my favorite writers is Jonathan Swift. And you can, you know, some people might consider Gulliver's Travels science fiction. Whether you do or not, it doesn't really matter to me. I don't really think of it as science fiction. But, you know, it's satire. I love satire. You know, I love 1984 and Animal Farm. I mean, I'll go back, you know, all the way to Aristophanes if you want, in terms of writers that really love sticking it to everyone. But especially like with Twitter, there's very, very few people who are willing to like just put their cards on the table or be genuine or be hopeful about something. And we tend to kind of sneer at people who are like that. And I really do wish we could get back to stories about big things and big ambitions, big ideas. And again, there are some stories like that. But again, if you think like, of the games that are coming out, you've got Cyberpunk, you've got The Ascent, you've got Satellite Rain, you've got 100 dystopias, and then every once in a while you'll get like a Kerbal Space Program. And there's just, and again, I'm focusing here on games, but even if you just take a look at stories, like not necessarily all of them are good. Maybe another example you can take about this is like Love, Death, and Robots, which is doing, I think, a really good job of taking interesting science fiction shorts and putting them in these really beautiful animated films. Some of the things, I'm not 100% on some of the adaptations. I think the Beyond the Aquila Reach is kind of funny, where the sex scene is literally a sentence in the short story, but it's almost like, I think it's like a fifth of the runtime of the short in the adaptation. And like, it's amazing animation. I'm like, holy crap, like this is really good. But like, on the other hand, it's sort of like there's a lot of interesting stuff in that short story that's not in the adaptation. And I kind of feel like it's because they spent so much time on the love scene, sex scene, whatever you want to call it. And it's because they're trying to sort of follow in the sense of heavy metal. But again, you take a look at Love, Death, and Robots, and not necessarily all of the stories are the sorts of things that you would associate with, 2001: A Space Odyssey, or, the sorts of things that make people, think sci-fi. It's actually, again, one of the reasons why I like Stellaris, because while it is ostensibly a war game, I'm the one writing the story. It's it's creation, and it's in this phase here. I will get to the grimacing event. It's like those first few turns with the settler in Civilization. You're building something. You're building your space empire, and by the time you start encountering someone, part of the war element is either to expand it or defend it. And so that's, I think, one of the reasons why I'm interested in it. But all of that, just to bring this back to Dune, is that I really like, however the gateway is, whether it's a TV series, whether it's a film, whether it's an obsessive sci-fi fan friend that gets people into it. I like the fact that there are things, obviously Hollywood's just going to want to try and find another IP to mine for easy marketing to an audience. And I mean, again, like, we get a chance to see some of our favorite stories realized on the big screen. So I still think there's something interesting in that. But it's my hope just really that there's a subset of people who then go back to the source material and just realize how cool it is. And maybe, after you're done reading Frank Herbert, you'll move on to some of the other some of the other authors that might catch your interest, maybe even some of them will become inspired to write their own stories. Anyways, sorry, I know that was a long digression, but grimacing, the very geological structure of Zygar 3 is indeed in flux, driven by what science officer... Wait a minute, we already read this, so it's the... Sorry, I thought we already made the decision. Science Officer Derbaxa reports that Zygar 3 can indeed be terraformed. A narrow window of opportunity is expected to open shortly as the planet enters a particularly unstable phase of its cycle, lasting a couple of months. Derbaxa believes that the miniaturized explosive charges delivered to the planet's crust and the strategic irradiation of the atmosphere during this time will halt Zygar 3's tumultuous changes and stabilize it in a form somewhat more suitable for sustaining life. A special project has been issued, but we do not have much time.
Log updated.
Actually, another game that I'd put in the category of sci-fi that I like because it's about building things and has a very hopeful atmosphere is Surviving Mars. It's actually one reason why Surviving the Aftermath so far hasn't
Research complete. We did it.
Hasn't really hit for me. Because I don't know, there's just something really wonderful about Surviving Mars and its soundtrack and its atmosphere. which I think is missing from Surviving the Aftermath. I haven't really quite gotten what I'm supposed to be feeling in Surviving the Aftermath. If I want sort of a survival game, I actually think Frostpunk and This War of Mine are a little more interesting along those lines. All right, tactical terraforming successful. Science Officer Derbaxa is proud to report that Zygar 3 can now be reclassified as an arid rather than a barren planet. This grand experiment has greatly enriched the Rexarian sciences. So, we potentially got that for physics, but in exchange for the terraforming, while the planet isn't necessarily useful to us, we do have 903 physics and 874 engineering for our effort. And again, I apologize for those of you who are here for more Stellaris gameplay. I try to hit the twin priorities, because one of the things I've loved the most about Stellaris is the fact that they name all of the patches after science fiction authors. It does give me some opportunities to either recommend or look up some authors that I'd either overlooked or whose works I haven't seen. So, for instance, I have not read a lot of Robert Heinlein, despite the fact that he is an incredibly influential and important science fiction author, and the fact that one of the earlier patches was named after him. I went down to the used bookstore. So first of all, that's great because you're supporting local business.
Can we monetize this?
But number two, I got Stranger in Strangeland, Starship Troopers, and there was a third one which I don't remember offhand. RimWorld also does a decent job of creating an atmosphere, but the art style doesn't do it for you. Yeah, that's actually one struggle that I've had with it. The same reason I sort of struggle with Prison Architect. The one thing that I do like, though, is that I feel like I can do more in RimWorld, and so I've actually been able to spend some more time with it. Also, Ludon Games, Tynan Sylvester's company, is Canadian. I believe he's based in Montreal, so I do like supporting Canadian games. I've not done RimWorld on stream, but I know a lot of people will be very happy if/when I do. But you're right, like part of the fantasy is the visual. So for instance, Industries of Titan, half of the appeal of that game is just the incredibly unique visual style of that game. Same with Phantom Brigade, actually, although in that case the sci-fi is just mechs fighting. It's actually more than that, but yeah, both of those games have just got a very well-defined art style that really reinforces the fantasy, whereas the simplicity of RimWorld's art style, really what you have to be doing is sort of building. You kind of have to be building part of it in your imagination, which can be an appealing way to play a game, but it's for the same reason that I don't necessarily play a lot of Dwarf Fortress. It is a cognitive burden for me to translate the ASCII art into entities that I sort of have a clear idea of what's going on. And in the case of RimWorld, I fall just sort of on the other side of that barrier for you. I'm actually able to spend some more time in RimWorld, but it's a tricky one. And it's, I totally understand why they went for that certain art style, but it's one that I do think potentially keeps people from otherwise enjoying a game that they might otherwise have gotten into. Massive storms are visible in the upper atmosphere of this gas giant. It might be worth the effort to study them in more detail. Actually, this is one. So I'm definitely interested in people's books. I've already got a good recommendation in terms of the Bobiverse, but. Does anybody have other examples of science fiction games that are either about big ideas or kind of more constructive in terms of their nature? So I know, like, for me, definitely Surviving Mars was a big one for that. But and now we've got RimWorld on the list. Does anybody have any other recommendations that they might have along those lines? Zygar 1 frequently experiences mass... I'd also include Sid Meier's Beyond Earth, and I love Alpha Centauri. I really also like Beyond Earth. I think that game was rather unfairly treated by its audience. But I know Beyond Earth is a little old now, too, so... Zygar 1 frequently experiences massive and extremely violent storm systems in its atmosphere. Several dozen persistent storms are visible from orbit, with winds often reaching speeds in excess of 700 meters a second. The cause of these storms is not immediately apparent, as we have found nothing in the planet's climate model that would explain them. Our scientists are interested in studying this anomaly. So it's not an actual this is an interesting writing challenge. So if you put anomaly in an event, are you kind of obligated to put... Well, then again, I guess I was researching an anomaly, so it wouldn't make sense to... Yeah, I think this is just me not Well, I mean, it is still kind of Stellaris' fault, because there's going to be a time between you starting the anomaly research and that, but I was definitely expecting to see an anomaly I needed to research, as opposed to that being the result of it. Kenshi. I've not heard of Kenshi. Let me take a second to look... Well, actually... I could look it up, or I can get chat to do my work for me. Would you mind giving me the pitch on Kenshi? All right, it's tradition time. So we've already gone down the prosperity path, so we can lower the building and district upkeeps, or we could reduce the build cost and build speed. Okay, so... But we get a free building spot if we go down this path. So how close are we to capacity? Not even close. Okay. So I think it's pretty clear we got to go down administrative operations. Specialist resource output is probably the most important for me. Actually, all of these are pretty good. But yeah, going down this branch makes more sense, because in addition to reductions on the... upkeep and such, Pursuit of Profit, and so Pursuit of Profit will give me more with my existing resources. Interstellar Franchising will give me an additional clerk job, so that's another job that, you know, we're able to take advantage of, and then that will buy me sort of the runway to finally be able to do the standard construction templates, and at that point, you know, the extra free building slot makes sense, because we'll probably be at capacity. So, administrative operations. As our empire continues to grow, eliminating corruption and inefficiency is of critical importance. These credit drains must be plugged. Alright, the Bowel organism. Several examples of Bowel fossils have been recovered, revealing the long-lost species to have been a hive mind, billions of plantoid units working together as a whole, like leaves and roots and branches of a tree. Dendrochronology suggests that individual Bale specimens had lifespans in the hundreds of years. The lack of structural ruins on Minok 3 appears to be the result of the Bale's reliance on remarkable organic technology, from ships and buildings to wet-weave biocomputers and the ravages of time. Alright. Zygar 2 has discovered Zro, which we discovered the origin of 2 playthroughs ago. During its... Yeah, actually, sorry. This is one thing I'll mention. To those of you who are new to Stellaris, one thing that is, you know, so obviously you're going to hit a certain point where you decide whether or not, you know, you're going to have to decide whether or not Stellaris is for you, and if you want to jump in with both feet. You know, clearly for me, this is a game that I'm willing to put a lot into. Drayden has got 2,000 hours in the game. It is not unusual to run into people who've got thousands of hours inside of Paradox games like this. But one of the things I actually can encourage you to notice is that you have elements such as Zro in this game. And one thing that is so interesting is that there is so, you know, when you build your own species, I've got, I think, is it 26 species now, all with their little biographies. That's the part that I, as the player, are creating. Clearly, Paradox has made their own species as well. But there's also a backstory, you know, the world that's come before. So we're following one of them in this story of the Baal. I think those were added, I can't remember what patch they were added in. But in any case, the Precursor events are one set of events. And I can let you know that sometimes precursors show up at later parts of the game. Either, you know, I won't bring that up any further, because there's a few different dimensions that you can take on that. That could mean like another event comes up, or something that they did wakes up, I'll leave it to your judgment. But it turns out that things such as Zro, there is actually a backstory for them. And not necessarily every playthrough you're going to run into the event chain that tells you what the origins of Zro are. But there is, in fact, a canonical account for what Zro is and where it came from. And this is one of the things that, I don't know if it was intended this way, but this is definitely something that has continued to keep playthroughs of Stellaris fresh for me, is that the more I play the game and the more I read the events, there are little details that are coming up, and it's like, oh, wait a minute. I'm curious where this is going. And then, they'll give you the event. You're like, oh my God, that's what Zro is. Ah! So again, if you have a memory for that and you like kind of steeping yourself in the world of the game, in addition to the fact that there are new events, and whether you get them through mods or you get them through DLC, there's just new things to discover, or sometimes you'll take a different path on another event. But in the long run, I'm still discovering things that are interesting for me, because there are some things that are just randomly generated that you don't run into every time. So for instance, there's a very well-regarded event chain called the Horizon Signal, and there's a very small probability that that you get the Horizon Signal when you enter a system with a black hole. But that probability is very small because they want that to be a special event. And so, you can play several times. It's actually been a few sessions since we've had a Horizon Signal event. But it's a very special one, and it's one that definitely leads you to some pretty incredible results. So that's just something to say, for those of you who are maybe still early on inside of the game, there are actually long-term pleasures to kind of be earned from Stellaris, just in terms of whether or not you get into, whether you get into some of the details. I see your message, Trajari. I'm just sorry. Is it Trajari or Trajarl? It's probably Trajal, and I'm reading it. No, it's Ari. Sorry. I don't have my glasses on, so I will read that in a section, but I'm also kind of conscious of the fact that I haven't been advancing the game a lot, so I'll deal with the event first, and then I'll catch up with chat. During its survey on Zygar 2, the ISS Lorad Kirax discovered a previously unknown strategic resource dubbed Zro. It is an extremely rare aerosol of exotic particles that appears to have been deposited here through a meteor impact, but its true origin is a mystery. If ingested by psionically gifted individuals, this aerosol should act as a very potent and potentially addictive drug that enhances psi abilities. While we do not yet possess the means to extract this resource, we should seriously consider establishing control over the system for future exploitation. Okay, so Kenshi is an RPG where you take part in a world that reminds you of Mad Max. You manage one person or a group of people. Real time with pause, you can pretty much do whatever you want and interact with factions. A hidden story that hits at a downfall due to robots. It's great, has overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam, which may or may not mean something to you. I mean, overwhelmingly positive is definitely, that's a pretty unambiguous recommendation. I am not the biggest fan of Steam's review system. I also recognize that they have an incredibly difficult job ahead of them. So, like, the thing is that I'm not a fan of it, but I don't know what my alternative to their system would be either. But I'll be honest, it's actually recommendations from people like you that tend to make me more inclined towards a particular game, because somebody who's played it has invested the time, and particularly when you say, like, this is what I'm into, like, this is why I like it, that's what really gets me into the game. Hopefully some of you, it's not just that when I'm waxing poetic about science fiction that I like, or things like the fact that there are certain event chains that will lead you to find out what Zro is, but the fact that you can actually play several sessions of Stellaris and not know what Zro is. That, to me, is something that makes this a very special game, and a reason why it's a game that I've sort of streamed for a few years. And sometimes you just play a game and it's a bunch of mechanics that you want to do, right? That's me in Battlefield, for instance. I'm sure there are some people who really are interested in the world of Battlefield 2042, but it's maybe not one that is the big selling feature for me. But I'm definitely able to get very excited about Stellaris and talk to people about, the different species that I make and some of the different events that have come up. So yeah, it's definitely one that I'll admit I'd not actually heard of it. So this is one thing that I mean, it's a wonderful problem to have in gaming, right? That there are so many good games being released that it's most like here's something that still drives me crazy. Among Us is still a game that sells very well, which means that there's a whole bunch of people who have never heard of or played Among Us before that are learning of it for the first time. That's mind-blowing to me because, of course, I'm very online, so I kind of just assume that everybody who wants to play Among Us has already tried. But I mean, that game's still going strong. Oh, Lo-Fi Games. Okay. Where have I heard of Lo-Fi? I've almost certainly heard of this developer before, but I know it's on the Steam page. It's their first game. Oh, this is 2018. This does look really good. Thank you for the recommendation. I'm wondering if maybe this was recommended to me at some point and I just didn't look into it. But yeah, that's definitely what I'm going to follow up on. Atmospheric readings from Zygar 4 do not match simulated projections.
Prospect analyzed.
Okay. So I'm going to actually do a detour because, again, this is something, if we take Amortizer, we've got even more systems locked up for ourselves. And then we'll move along. We're probably at a point where we can, yeah. I should probably either keep this open all the time or I should just buy at the 125. Swirling shadows. Immense ragged planes of shadow drift across Zygar 6's face. They are cast not by clouds, but by sheets of organic material drifting through the upper layers of the atmosphere, hinged, or rather jointed, to allow for a small degree of articulation. Science Officer Jerbaxa is as yet unwilling to say whether these things are flora or fauna, or what possible purpose, if any, their elaborate shadow casting might serve. So, social research, again, it's a possible system that we'll exploit, but no guarantees. And I'm gonna do the same thing. We'll lock up the dead ends and then move out. All right, where are we at? I shouldn't be rushing these ships because we're still waiting on the faster Corvette.
Technology
there we
discovered.
go.
Rad.
Okay. So our Empire Sprawl is getting back to where it should be. An advanced AI will aid science officers in their task to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no Blorg has gone before. The science ship will be able to explore the galaxy with help from an AI. Okay. Capacity subsidies is pretty tempting.
Prospect analyzed.
Actually. Now I'm going to do the research station output. It's a tough one for me. The energy one is good, but then it invites the age-old question, right? Where do we put it? Do we replace the holo theater? Do we wait for the extra building slot? It's a trickier prospect. I'm still getting used to this idea of being a habitat-based species. So far, the plan that we set up at the beginning, though, is paying off. I mean, it does take a while for the habitat to get built. We're just over halfway on it. But notice here that we haven't really dropped to negative consumer goods, but we have been able to expand the empire, and we're no longer paying the price of the Empire Sprawl. Okay, Ruined World. The entire planet is covered in vast structures. This fallen megalopolis surely has secrets to be unearthed. So, again, more reasons to try and lock in this area, but we're going to need a pretty substantial increase to our admin cap. Yeah, no problem, Tojari. Thank you so much for stopping by and sharing the game. And I do appreciate the compliment. I never want to be too needy as a broadcaster in terms of hearing, in terms of hearing nice things. But especially when I start monologuing a bit, I sometimes think it's like, does anybody want to hear this stuff? So it's nice to get a little external validation. I hope you best of luck with your projects. Once I'm done streaming tonight, I'll be doing some of my own. But all the best. Thank you.
Better generate some revenue.
Thank you for sharing and making this a pleasant stream. And all the best with the rest of your night or day, wherever. I don't know where you're based. All right, standardized Corvette patterns, so we can start buying Corvettes again. Establishing new standards for the modeling and construction of Corvettes greatly improves the efficiency of the production pipeline. So mining subsidies, we sort of face the same dilemma on Ducarex. I don't exactly need the extra planetary build speed. I'd probably rather put these into my ships more than anything. So we can double down on engineering. We did move the Voidcraft guy in and get Strikecraft. Honestly, though, Afterburners is the better option. So I'm just going to pause things so I can replace it with the... I think it's roughly equivalent. No, 15% is better. I don't always... I mean, those of you who've seen me play know that I don't always switch out the scientists, but I try to when I can. It's just I'm also forgetful. Honestly, at this point, I can just dump out all of my alloys. I'll try and buy them back when I can, but... If I can get to the 20, I always tend to... It's a little bit like... this brings us back to the cleaning the apartment story. I always find it's easier to maintain a full fleet than it is to build a new one. So, like, just doing the upgrades. I think it's just because you have to wait for the full amount, whereas an upgrade, you can hit the upgrade, and then it'll just wait for it to go through. What kind of government am I running? Hello, MD Stevens. I am a criminal enterprise. It's the first one I've ever played. So let me just read the scientist event. Through hard work and experience, scientist Forlek has developed new skills. So they're a statecraft. So we're the Natraxian Rum Runners. They are a criminal syndicate, a authoritarian fanatic militarist, criminal heritage, and corporate hedonism. So these are our... and we went for the Void Dwellers opening. So a few new ones. I've never done Void Dwellers, never done a criminal enterprise. Currently, we don't have any neighbors, so we don't have anybody to visit our speakeasies. But these are our galactic speakeasies. I do write bios for everything. So this one, actually, it's more written from the perspective
Boom!
of Boss.
I found something.
Boss Kiriox. But the basic idea here is that these were, I mean, again, it's gangsters, it's people trying to avoid the law, and the idea on this one was that, I mean, they're a reptilian race, so there was a cooling event on the planet. Boss Kiriox is very suspicious of the government already, and not just because of his criminal heritage, but rather his criminal heritage comes from his suspicion of the government. And essentially they had essentially they're a criminal organization that had become so sophisticated at avoiding the government that when they imposed sort of quotas and restrictions, they'd already had the infrastructure in place for already getting around the law. And part of that involved just creating a small space program. I mean, I'm sure this will happen one day in the history of Earth, right? That obviously there is a lot of R&D that goes into the trading of illegal substances. And because it's so profitable, there are some really high-tech means of doing this. And so I would not be surprised if at some point in the future there is, some form of, low low orbit solution. I mean, again, the thing is that if you see a rocket launch, there's definitely a lot of government entities that are going to be very interested in that event happening. That is probably the one thing that would keep that from becoming something that's already done. But on the other hand, if you have lots of, if there's just an overall increase in terms of activity, like, again, just give it enough time in the future, I'm sure there's something like that that's going to happen. Basically a Zan consortium, but starting in a space station. I don't know the Zan consortium in Star Wars. I apologize, but yeah, that's maybe not if I'm gonna rely on your familiarity with the property to decide if the fit fits a good one. Basically, the idea here was certainly that they'd gotten so used to it and so good at it that when the time came, essentially kind of the governments fell to infighting. Part of this is, the COP26 inspiring it, and the Natraxian rum runners effectively became the stewards of the species. Myrna's 3A's irface appears to be heavily pockmarked, which is not unusual. What is unusual is the regular shape of the scars, irregularly distributed. This is unlikely to be the result of meteorite impacts. Yeah, that one's a tricky one because, of course, I always like comparing. I mean, again, I don't know anything, so take this with a very tiny grain of salt. But if you think of the origins of the American Revolution, and it's the fact that there is, with the closing of the 7 Years' War and the removal of the French threat from the 13 colonies, that being sort of the source of the or basically it kind of ceased to be it ceased to be something that made those colonies feel a particular need for the motherland, the mother country. I would have to assume that there is something about trade with Earth that would make a colony like that feel some sort of alliance. And again, whether it's a world government or or a coalition or something like that, like, I'm just assuming that the ability to get necessities to Venus, or like being able to trade with Venus, would be a much better way of getting necessities there. But you're right. I mean, there's a certain point where you develop enough self-reliance that you want to sort of chart your own destiny. I also have no idea what the timeline for colonization of planets would be, because I think even this might even be a Jeff Bezos quote, but the idea that it's like, go to the top of Mount Everest and, spend a year there, like develop a sustainable outpost on the top of Everest. And then you can tell me about your Mars mission. Because Everest, from what I understand, is a significantly easier job than Mars. On the other hand, we were talking earlier about dreaming big, right? Like, it's, I guess it's the old problem, right? That in one sense, once the Soviet Union kind of ceased to be the big threat, or at least the competitor, there wasn't quite the same level of progress and interest in space exploration. Obviously, things like GPS, we rely a lot on satellites. We definitely do things in space, but we don't quite have the same sort of emphasis behind it. And that's a large part of what For All Mankind is about. You see a rapid acceleration of the space program in response to the Soviets landing on the moon first. And so, I don't know, like, it's interesting to hear. So it's, in one sense, like, it almost, if you sit down with a ledger, like, some of the space exploration makes absolutely no sense. and yet it is entirely either the species or the societies that make a seemingly nonsensical choice that actually do potentially become, multi-planet species, or ones that, that achieve, achieve the different, or reap the benefits of it. That, and I mean, not everything has to just come down into a ledger. I don't know. That's the one part where I just turn off the econ side of the brain and say it's like there are things worth doing. The isolation of the colonies had from the home country when the mother country finally decided to lay down the law. The colonies, like unruly teenagers, ran to an estranged parent, basically acted out. Yeah. It's actually a really good book on the American Revolution that I read. It's Theodore Draper. I don't remember the title right now. Anyways, we'll talk about space stuff. Apocalypse Past. Memas 3A was once home to a race of reasonably intelligent beings who destroyed themselves when they were seemingly only decades away from spaceflight. The planet has recovered from what must have been immense acts of senseless destruction, but it still bears very visible scars. One of the few remaining ruins on the surface holds a reasonably well-preserved stone monolith inscribed with a message, quickly decoded by Furlek. It is a warning from the last of the extinct species to whoever they believed would arise after their passing. It was the development of an ultimate weapon that was their downfall. Some quirk in the psychology of this species evidently rendered deterrence through mutually assured destruction impossible. Survivors, before dying of unknown causes soon after, hid this weaponry deep underground as destroying them was difficult, and left this message I believe it should be this message to dissuade us from going looking for them. So it's like, then dissuaded we shall be, or find those weapons! Of course we're going to find the weapons.
Log updated.
We're gangsters. So we can... I guess I can afford to assign a leader. It's not the smartest choice right now, but if we have fleet logistics... Nope. So I do like gale speed. They're kind of old. We'll go for it. So we need 3 more ships after this. I should say that I probably have another half hour left in me for the stream. I'm hoping that at the very least we'll sort of see the delivery of the new habitat. Yeah, we're at 83%. That should happen. But if there are any questions or any kind of comments on this particular session, now would not be a bad time to do a debrief. And it looks like that we can colonize this relic world. So this makes me think that making a bit of a snake to the caster system is a good idea, because then we're going to be able to... I mean, again, it's rare that we're able to actually colonize a planet. So this would be another growth opportunity for us. Also seems like it's a huge planet. Oh my god, yeah, this is too good to pass up. Holy crap. Wait a minute. This is totally gonna have a dragon on it. Yeah, we're still gonna try and take it, but yeah, this is almost certainly gonna. There is no way that this thing is for free. How are we looking on the... Okay, so we're getting close to our limits. I mean, this is an easy one because we just built the research district. I'll actually do that now. Mining station.
Research complete. We did it.
An interesting find. It seems that the people of this planet were experimenting only with what we would consider to be fairly basic weapons technologies. The havoc they wrought is more a testament to their incredible genocidal tendency than it is to the power of their weaponry.
Wow, we really hit this tech out of the ballpark.
But, I mean, it's a free coil gun, right? So, coil guns are more powerful versions of the early mass drivers, using electromagnetic coils to rapidly accelerate projectiles towards targets. One thing we are missing here is slaves. So, like, even our... well, we don't have any mines here. Even our mines are worked by free people. That's fine. We'll run into some species we can enslave later. Actually, this is just totally for me, because this is not really on topic for any of the things that we were discussing before, but...
Planetary exploitation forecast complete.
I was talking about how Reamd was going to be a book that I read in future. It's because I actually
Planetary exploitation forecast complete.
I have a book that I'm going through first. It's a collection of short stories called Different Kinds of Darkness by David Langford. This book in particular is interesting because it has a collection of Langford's Basilisk stories. So these are what happened at Cambridge. Well, BLIT is the original story. What happened at Cambridge 4 is sort of a prequel to it. And then Comp.Basilisk FAQ and Different Kinds of Darkness are probably two sequels to it. I find this idea fascinating. It seems to be that it's one of Langford's more popular ideas. But the thing is that it's nice when you run into an author that's known for one thing. It's kind of neat to be able to, read some of the other things. So I'm not always good for this, right? Like, I've only ever read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, although I know that Douglas Adams has, there's Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. There's also a short story I haven't read, Young Zaphod Plays It Safe. But where I can, it's sort of nice if you have an author that did something you like to just be able to check out some of their other stuff. Okay, the Baron. Coordinates describing the location of another former Bell colony have been extracted from a shattered Grunner data crystal. Perhaps this planet will boast some of the riches sought after by the Bell's ancient enemies.
Log updated.
Oh. Subra, huh? I'm going to skip the bow line for a bit, and we're going to take care of this dig. Ooh. An ancient space station of some kind has been located at the edge of the Josk Fomat system. A strong residual subspace signature that surrounds the station indicates that it may be a gateway of sorts, part of a theoretical network of similar stations that at some point would have been allowed for near-instantaneous travel between different parts of the galaxy. Assuming this is a gateway, the current state of disrepair has rendered it unusable. If it could be restored to working order, its owner would potentially be able to access any other functional gateways in the galaxy, enabling travel across huge distances in a matter of days. So that is a proper gateway, not an L gate, so... Kind of want to still get a read on the rate at which this decreases, so it seems like it's a matter of days. So maybe we'll wait till this gets to 5.2 again. We'll buy another one, and we'll see how long it takes to get it back to that base level. Because at 109, we're potentially still making a profit, even though we're constantly buying the alloys. Dolok habitat complete. Okay, perfect. Let's just take a quick look here. We've completed the construction of our first habitat, and it is finally time to ready a colony vessel and make landfall on the world that we ourselves have created. From its mechanical core to its highest mountains, every nut, bolt, creek, and cranny have been designed to fit our needs perfectly in our new home among the stars. Okay, so that's interesting to know. So we do actually have a colonization period that we need to wait out. Fair enough. We're not going to build another one of those for a while. I am, however, going to head out to Shorax. Actually, you know what? Let's just bite the bullet, buy a big stack of alloys, and colonize it right away. So again, the reason for building it in the system here, this molten world's not going to be used for anything else, and it allows us to kind of keep everything in the main system. In this case, I'm just minimizing my costs of administrators. And again, this is going to be focused on consumer goods, so it does mean that I may need to double-check sources of minerals, but of course that's what the Vestalia system will get me if I get in trouble.
Boom! I found something!
Life signs have been detected coming from inside the atmosphere of this gas giant. Could it indicate the presence of some kind of biosphere? We were doing the habitable world survey, weren't we? Oh, only 2 of 8. Oh, wait, right. Because we have impossibly high standards. Okay, atmospheric ecosystem. We have discovered a thriving ecosystem in the upper atmosphere of the gas giant Josk Fomot 2. Massive floating creatures, having evolved bodies filled with lighter-than-air gases, follow the wind currents and feed off the energy released by the gas giant's frequent lightning storms. These beings, in turn, support colonies of smaller animals that prey on atmospheric plankton and aid each other. So neither... Thank you, Drayden. I didn't realize that... I have built habitats before, but it's been ages, so I did not realize that you needed to colonize
Technology
them.
discovered. Rad!
So I probably would have put a little bit
Anomaly
more.
found. Hey,
Probably would have put a little more
can we
effort into
monetize this?
the colony development techs early on. But I mean, again, it's not the end of the world. We're just ahead in some other stuff. So a small cargo pod has been left to drift in space above this gas giant. It has been captured by the planet's gravity well and will eventually be pulled into the atmosphere. Well, we'll definitely research that. Zero-G laboratories. A lot of critical research can only be done in a zero-gravity environment, which these specialized laboratories are eminently designed for. Well, if I want the extra colony development speed, there it is. Why not? We'll almost certainly get it too... No, there's no almost. We will get it too late, but I'll have it for next time. And this is actually very timely, because I suspect what's going to wind up happening is I'm going to lose a bureaucrat to that science. Oh, no, we've already built it, so... the progress we make calls for a new, nimbler form of administration that may aid rather than hinder us in our pursuits. Okay. Atmospheric filtering doesn't make a ton of sense because, like, all of the other worlds that we have... Do we have a particular goal this campaign? So I think I've seen most of the stuff that the new update has. We've become the Crisis. I guess we didn't really fully become Emperor the last time, so maybe we'll do that. But yeah, honestly, right now the goal is just to win. I'm playing, I think, 1 difficulty level. So I had a bit of a hiatus from Stellaris for a while, and so I think I started 1 difficulty below the previous time I played, and I got like clobbered by the War in Heaven. So then I went 1 down below that, and like it was just nonsense. Like we just like demolished the AI. So then I bumped it up again, thinking it's like, well, maybe it was just an unlucky run. With the War in Heaven. Like, I made some clear mistakes, but yeah, here I'm not sure. I I think in this one I just want to try and win by any means, and we'll sort out the rest later. Also, if I get a chance to do if I get a chance to get achievements, I usually take it. But in this case, it's usually fun to just see where it goes. And the more I get these ball events, the more I think I have actually run into this one before. So I always have a dilemma when I run into these cases here. So like atmospheric filtering is kind of like those colony development techs. Right now, it doesn't seem to serve any purpose for me. Again, I am assuming this is a dragon's lair. And all of the other potential worlds, I'm near certain, are all 0%. So getting a 5% habitability is not really going to move the needle. On the other hand, it is one of the less expensive technologies. So even if I go to the next highest, something like space combat, so fleet command limit 20, sure, that is useful. Obviously, we need to build up the naval capacity, but we have ways of doing that. The catch here is that when you look at the difference between 70 to 93 months, like you're looking at another 2 years. So if nothing else, we could just take atmospheric filtering so we can move out of the way, move it out of the way and just get the other techs faster. On the other hand, like on a scale of 70 months to 93, is like another 2 years really all that bad? Or we just jump in with both feet and go for like the naval capacity. Yeah, you know what? We'll do fleet support. Let's see if we can get a military focus. Of course, I don't have a military focused one. Fair enough. Just we won't do any social research for a while.
Prospect analyzed.
But yeah, so as is true for just about every round of Stellaris I play, lots of systems I want to take, and absolutely no administrative capacity to take them. Abandoned cargo pod. A discarded cargo pod was left by someone in the upper atmosphere of Maya 4 long ago. It has somehow escaped the notice of other spacefarers, and its decaying orbit means that it would have been lost in the gas giant's crushing atmosphere within another few years. When the crew of the ISS Lorad Kirax unsealed the pod, they found a stash of alien jewelry made out of precious metals. Remarkable. Okay, so one more Corvette after this, and then we've got a full fleet for the time being. This one's locked into excavation. It's pretty much going to be excavation for the rest of its life, I think, which is a shame because it's actually got a boost to survey speed. So is there a better ship for that kind of exploration? Well, this one's good at anomalies. So, you know what? I'm going to switch it around. I know we lose some time while they're, navigating, but this is the better candidate for expeditions, because at least this one will be able to go through the systems faster. All right, I think we said we were going to do Pursuit of Profit, and yeah, Pursuit of Profit makes the most sense. The Pursuit of Profits has become a central tenet in our society. Those who are successful at any kind of enterprise are deeply admired, and the accumulation of energy credits is seen as an extremely worthwhile goal. That should also hopefully give us a boost to... So when it says specialist pops, I'm interpreting that as bureaucrats as well. Although this seems to say it's still a flat 10 administrative capacity, so I guess I don't get a bonus to that.
Another bleeding-edge technology discovered.
These powerful thrusters provide additional combat speed, but consume a great deal of power. Okay, moving right along. Corvette hull points, that seems a little... I mean, if I was in a war, it'd be really helpful. But you know what? Let's go for deep core mining. I don't think we have an industrial-focused researcher, though. The negotiations for appointing a new boss are underway. The decision will be announced in 22/20/04/01.
We built something.
In order to ensure the security and continuing stability, the Republic will be organized into the First Galactic Empire for a safe and secure society. So yeah, I'm interested if Kyriax is going to stay the boss. I will abstain. New ruler has been elected. Boss Durbaxa will rule until the next election, which will take place in 22/40/02/20. All right, internal power struggle. So fleet expansion agenda, of course, right around the time I'm done. Ship upkeep -5, build speed plus 20%. Oh, genius. Yeah, we have to do it. They're young too, so... it's always a dilemma for me to decide if I want... So, like, obviously Spark of Genius gives you the 10% bonus on its own, but of course the scientists we already have in the lab are pretty good at what they do. Oh, it's only 6% off of... Okay. Yeah, you know what, with that in mind then, better to get them in the lab. And then I suppose the other thing I could do would be to organize it around which tech I want to have researched first. You know, it doesn't really matter that much. But yeah, no, I definitely like the idea of the the rum runners suddenly becoming emperor. All right, we're still digesting our last big purchase.
Prospect analyzed.
Yeah, definitely good systems here. So, like I said, I'll do the snake down to Castor at least, and we'll have to figure out what we're doing on the other side here. I think what I'll do with after these two systems, I'll at least check out this one. I don't know if I'm going to go any further. I really just want to get an idea of what's sort of in the surrounding area, and I think at this point,
resource extraction.
I do need to actually start kind of moving through these parts of the map as well as these. So sort of a similar story here. We're going to check out what we can here. I might kind of go through the little triangle just to see what's going on. But we do need to start sort of specifically looking at these potential weaknesses in our defenses. Because this is obviously taken care of, and we know that if we can, we want to take these systems. But that's a long-term project. I know we're going to have some penalties for the number of sort of entry points, but that's life. I've never actually found that to be all that big of a problem. We also have enough alloys now that I think we can afford the upgrades. This might come back to bite me when I try to take the Toraville system, but oof, yeah, we're already up to 63. We have 3 new pops before we're going to be able to get that extra bureaucrat.
Anomaly detected.
Our initial scans have caught an irregular signal reminiscent of our own distress patterns. So I'm just trying to think about the best way to manage all of this. So I'm definitely going to have a deficit of consumer goods, but we've probably built enough of a... We've kind of built enough of a nest egg that we should be fine. The big drawback was the colonization time, although it seems to be happening quite quickly. So yeah, it'll be done in less than a year. I don't know if habitats are just faster to colonize or what the story is, but it's good news either way.
I found something.
Efforts to map the surface of the moon have identified a strange mountain formation in the southern hemisphere. It does not appear to have formed naturally. Actually, what might be funny is if it turns out that these sort of get connected, so I might be able to combine them. No, if that offshoot's happening, then there's probably no way that I can combine these two branches without getting really big. The signal we intercepted was a distress call from a ship in orbit around Sosta 2. The ship is not giving off any heat signatures and seems to be drifting. A special project has been issued to investigate what happened to the crew. So I think this is the one where we can potentially get the brain parasite. Or not, well, like there's the brain slug, but I'm thinking like the one that causes everybody to kill each other. But, I'm just looking for... Oh, wait a minute. Did I... Drayden, I think I owed you a scientist, didn't I?
Research complete.
Having searched the ship and inspected the crew's remains, Science Officer Coxurum has deduced that the crew members must have killed each other. The solitude and confinement of space travel can break even the strongest minds. All right, well, we'll get a chance to name someone after you. There we go. We're receiving a distress signal from the ISS Lorod Kirax. The crew has gone mad and are killing each other. The captain has lost all control. Sending help would be futile at this point. Could this have anything to do with the derelict ship that they recently investigated? All right. I'm going to have to wait to build it, but I will hire the scientist right away. Congratulations, you are a roamer. So my apologies for not doing that earlier. You're going to have to wait a little while for your ship, but you can go investigate the ruins of your predecessor. Alright, nobody home. Landing teams were sent down to the surface of Iolum 4A and captured our first close-range look at the world and its windswept, deserted cities. They are old, weathered by exposure and neglect, but mostly intact, with no signs of destruction. Of the inhabitants, there is no trace. The only plausible theory at present is some sort of mass migration or evacuation took place. We still have yet to determine what could compel an entire species to abandon everything they'd built and ever known. Keep digging. Gigantic skeleton. What was previously thought to be assorted mountains in the southern hemisphere of Hanteron 1A have been identified as the massive skeletal remains of a single colossal alien life form. The bones have been dated as 3.4 billion years old, but our scientists have ruled out that Hanteron 1A could have supported life on that scale at any point in the moon's history. Science Officer Guferal has prepared a special research project to delve further into this mystery.
Log updated.
Still waiting on your ship. Although we're probably just going to have to pay up for the alloys anyway, because I want to expand to Toroville.
Construction complete.
I'm really getting ripped off here. I think once we've taken the caster system, I will pass the edict. I can always like keep pushing it off, but the research subsidies are kind of important. Actually, you know what? Let's do it now. I'm pretty sure I'll have enough for the caster system. And one big reason for that is we are going to be going over the Empire Sprawl. So, right, the Forskax Void Skulkers fleet has been fully upgraded, and the science ship should be following shortly after. I suppose.
Colony established.
Hey, nice.
High five.
All right. So I'm basically just going to pattern it after Kirox's private stash. So I think we do need to start with a habitat. I'm trying to decide if I want to try and do a leisure district or... Let's do at least one trade depot. We might be able to bypass the hydroponics farm. Yeah, so this is the priority I want. Habitation district, just so I make sure I have enough amenities. Industrial district, because that's the reason why we built this thing. Holo theater, because that'll promote growth. Trade district, I actually feel a little uncertain on, but the other bases have it, so I'll keep it for consistency. Also, trade isn't, like, terrible. Trade might eventually become consumer goods, depending on what we, what policies we enact. Again, industrial district's the reason we built this thing. I might even do another one. Actually, apparently leisure district isn't an option anymore. Right, because we locked in. Yeah, no, that's how I want to build it. And we're going to wait for the creation of Drayden's fancy new science ship, and then I think we will call it a night.
Research complete.
Special project completed. After continued studies of the massive skeletal remains found in Hantaron 1A, Science Officer Gufaral has concluded that the creature served as some kind of organic starship. Much smaller bones from at least three separate species were found within the larger skeleton, and we assume that these came from members of the crew. For unknown reasons, this organic starship suffered catastrophic damage and crash-landed on Hantaron 1A. While we cannot begin to understand the biological engineering necessary to grow a spaceship like this, the study of these bones alone has substantially advanced our knowledge. And no real guarantees that we'll ever have access to that, but that's sort of true for everything. Alright. Drayden's ready to go, and we will start by sending you here, and then the Sosta and the unknown systems. So, today's real goal here was to... So we started off just by sort of evaluating our position, and we said that, okay, well, we clearly want to be able to increase our research, but there was no way of doing that without hitting our consumer goods. We're actually quite lucky in the sense that we never hit a point where we were going into the red. Now, it's likely here that we are going to have a deficit of consumer goods while we get up and running on Dolak habitat. But in the end, we're doing quite well as far as our science is concerned. We're growing into it. We are going to have some trouble in terms of Empire Sprawl just because of our expansion into Toroville and Castor. And it is going to take a while before we get the kind of the remaining growth into the bureaucrats. But it's like the expenses are going to be there. I'm going to just make sure that I'm a little more responsible in not expanding until we've got the administrative capacity. Once that's taken care of, I may consider... Well, I'm pretty much going to have to build another habitat pod, but I may actually build a bureaucratically inclined habitat pod. And that'll just kind of to be specifically to help me out with the expansion plans. Actually, I should probably... Okay, so this is definitely a factory station. This is focused on generation.
Boom! We built something.
Oh. So perhaps an industrial station's a better Yeah, I think I'm going to call it an industrial station because I do want the alloys to go up as well. Okay, they'll build up on Toraville. But yeah, so our main goal was just to recognize the fact that consumer goods were going to be our big weakness. So in a similar sense, we take a look at the current position. We got our sort of medium-term... I mean, by my scales, that was a short-term goal, but you know, it was sort of the substance of the play session. So we take a look at our current situation right now. I'll still let the game run, but at normal speed. What are we looking at here? You know, what would our next decision be? Well, we're going to close off this. You know, this is just our sort of run to Castor to make sure that we've sort of locked that in for ourselves and we're moving our science ship accordingly. And it's very clear here that there is more territory that we want to claim than we can realistically take.
Found something.
We have already laid the foundations for taking care of our consumer goods. In fact, I can probably build another station which has something of a consumer goods focus. But it is going to be our bureaucratic or our administrative capacity that limits our expansion. And so it seems to me that the next obvious colony that we want to build is going to be one with a bureaucratic focus. That, of course, means that my specialized districts are going to look a little bit different from the other ones, but we can still work with that. I'm thinking probably what we'll do is we'll build one luxury district so that we don't need to have the Holo Theater. Might still do trade. Yeah. I don't know. I'll think about it when I build it, but I don't need to go heavy on the trade. Sorry, faint traces of weapon radiation indicative of military spacecraft have been detected on Soyo 1. And then when we take a look at the home system, there should be an obvious candidate. Am I going crazy? Huh. I thought we had another free station. Okay. So it looks like our next... It looks like our next habitat's actually going to be built... Oh yeah, this is good. So this is close to home, and it's got 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh god, yeah, we'll be in good shape. And in fact, if we need another generator habitat, we can build it on Sidar 5. So maybe with that in mind, Minuk? Yeah, Minuk has a little bit less to recommend it. I mean, we do have the engineer... I mean, the other thing, too, is that if I expand to 1, it doesn't mean that I can kind of expand to as many as I want. There is some benefit to concentrating, just because if I build a big space station that's either there for defense or for other purposes, you know, like a deep space black site or something. Well, actually, I guess in that case, distributing the habitat pods would make more sense. Anyways, as long as I keep them within range of the capital, I don't need to worry about getting another governor. All right, alien spacecraft. A badly damaged military vessel bearing elaborate alien insignia circles Soyu 1. The ship has suffered heavy incendiary attack, which has melted its hull, leaving no survivors on board. No weapons known to us today can produce temperatures high enough to cause such an effect. Perhaps the ship's logs may shed some light on its violent end.
Log updated.
I pretty much always do whatever option the game gives me. I feel like you can't play a space exploration game and then say you're not going to explore. It's not right. All right, down we go. The investigation into ILM-4A's missing population has made a breakthrough. Large sealed shield doors leading to a deep tunnel network stand as proof that the entire species started to move underground at some point. Cross-examination with geological and meteorological data indicates that the entire planet was gripped by a sudden onset ice age, perhaps triggered by a shift in axial tilt, which likely triggered the migration. Excursions into the vast tunnel networks are underway. And we will learn more about that species in the next stream. So for those of you who are just here for Stellaris, that is at least a weekly thing. So that's usually going to be on Mondays. As for the rest of the week, tomorrow there will be a pre-recorded Elder Scrolls Oblivion episode. We have now completed the main campaign. The week after next one is going to be split into 2 parts due to a very stupid thing that I did. But for Twitch viewers, it shouldn't be a big deal. Again, that's pre-recorded, so I'm not able to greet people by voice, but I do usually hang out and chat. Wednesday, so just a reminder that Dirty Rectangles was rescheduled, so while there is a Phantom Brigade update, and I do want to play it, if I do it, I'll probably have to start early, so probably 6 o'clock instead of 7, if I can swing it, because I also need to eat dinner. And then it'll probably be a shorter broadcast because, again, the Dirty Rectangles thing will be going on. I will host it if you want to see what local game devs are up to. It's usually fun to see. But some of you just want to see Phantom Brigade, so you can hang out for that. And then Friday, if I recall correctly, it is Mad King Brutus's birthday, and he said that it would be great if I did Mass Effect Legendary Edition, which I own but have not played yet. So I don't know if there is a preference for a certain Mass Effect game. This is not to suggest that I'm going to be doing a full playthrough, so I will do some Mass Effect, but it's I've got other things that I want to do for the Friday. But this Friday most likely is going to be Mass Effect Legendary Edition. It'll be the first time I'm playing it, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they did. I've only heard good things, so but the ongoing Friday game, I know what it is, but I'm not going to say what it is yet. I am going to take a quick second to find somebody to host, so I know I give long goodbyes, but I'd love it if you'd hang around so we can show some support to someone. And I'm not sure if that's going to be a Stellaris streamer or someone else. All of that
Text
will depend.
messages are a powerful tool.
So many videos turning on. Let's just take a quick second here. Who do we have? Okay. To be honest, so I really like Brian on the Rocks, and he's playing Halo Infinite. And the problem is that it's really obvious that one of his mods doesn't like me. So this is going to be a bit of a lesson here. Brian is a fantastic guy, and I am never going to say a bad thing about him. Unfortunately, it is sometimes a little uncomfortable to be in his channel, given the way the mod behaves. And so while I was going to host him tonight, I do see that Night Valiant is also streaming. So I suppose there's a lesson. I realize it's just a couple of viewers right now. But for those of you who are mods, it's totally fine if you don't like someone, right? Not everybody has to get along. But unfortunately, the people who pay for behaviors like that are not... It's not the person who you dislike. It's the person that you are ostensibly, quote-unquote, supporting. So again, I don't usually like doing Twitch drama stuff, but it's also a little weird because I always keep hosting Brian, and then he's obviously online, so everybody's like, oh, why didn't you host Brian this time? That's why. I'm not going to say who the mod is. I'm not going to ever talk about it other than this one time here. But unfortunately, that's how I feel. And it would be really nice if moderators remembered that they're not there for them. They're there for the broadcaster. So, enjoy Night Valiant. Have a wonderful evening. And we'll see some of you tomorrow, some of you Wednesday. And for those of you here for Stellaris, I'll see you in a week.